2015. We'd like to welcome all of our citizens and staff to our proceedings. At this time, joining us will be the Reverend Don Hanna, the pastor of St. James United Methodist Church, to lead us in our invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, Commissioner Chip Lible. Let's all stand together.
Let us pray. Dear God, I thank you for our county and its communities. Lord, I pray your blessings this day upon the leadership of our county commission. Thank you, Lord, for the service of all those involved. Lead and guide them. Give them wisdom, I pray. Lord, give discernment to those who speak. I pray that your will might be done in this and in all things. I give you thanks. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
Sir, please place the flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated.
There she comes.
Commissioners, each of you should have received the minutes from the April 28th, 2015 regular meeting. Would like to accept a motion for approval of minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval.
Second.
We have a proper motion and a second for approval of the April 28th meeting. Further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Like sign, hearing none, motion carries. Item 3, proclamation recognizing May as Civility Month as requested by the Florida Bar throughout our state. Commissioner Pelletier.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Putnam County Proclamation number 2015-38, Civility Month. Whereas the open exchange of public disclosure is essential to the democratic system of government, and whereas a cornerstone of democracy, Americans have observed certain rules of behavior generally known as civility. And whereas civility derives from the Latin word civitas, meaning city, and civis, meaning citizen, is behavior-worthy citizens living in a community or in common with others. And whereas displays of anger, rudeness, ridicule, impatience, and lack of respect and personal attacks detract from the open exchange of ideas, prevent fair discussion of issues that can discourage individuals from participation in government, and whereas civility can assist in reaching consensus on diverse issues and allow for mutually respectful ongoing relationships, and whereas civility can uplift your daily life and make it more pleasant to live in an organized society, and whereas the city, county, and local government law section of the state of Florida Bar urges the adoption of a pledge of civility by all citizens in the state of Florida. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Putnam County Board of County Commissioners in a meeting assembled on the 12th day of May 2015 that the month of May is recognized as Civility Month in Putnam County, and all citizens are called to exercise civility towards each other. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and so move approval of this proclamation.
We have a proper motion and a second for approval of the proclamation recognizing May as Civility Month. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Like sign, hearing none, motion carries. We will forward that to the Florida Bar. Agenda item 4, proclamation, National Public Works Week. Public Works Director and staff from Public Works are here. If you all will all come together, I will meet you at the podium as Commissioner Harris prepares to present this proclamation.
National Public Works Week. Whereas public works infrastructure, facilities, and services are important to the health, safety, and well-being of the people of Putnam County, and whereas such facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees from the local government and private sector who are responsible for and must plan, build, operate, and maintain the transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential to serve our citizens. Whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities are well as their planning, design, and construction are dependent upon the efforts and skill of public works officials. Whereas the 55th Annual National Public Works Week is an opportunity for citizens, civic leaders, and children in our state to gain knowledge and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in the respective communities. Now, therefore, it is hereby proclaimed by the Putnam County Board of Commissioners that the week of May 17th through the 23rd, 2015 is recognized as National Public Works Week in Putnam County, Florida. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we adopt this proclamation.
Proper motion by Commissioner Harris,
Second.
second by Commissioner Harvey. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Like sign, hearing none. Congratulations and thank you all for what you do each week. Thank you.
No, not really.
We do appreciate the Public Works Department, and as we continue to enhance what we do, week in and week out, we certainly have come a long way. Thank you so much. Item 5 on this morning's agenda is public comment, and again, we remind all of our citizens that this portion of the agenda is designed for you to have the opportunity to bring matters to our attention. It's not reasonable to expect that we will engage in debate or deliberation about matters in which we have not had opportunity to study and have prior information on it in our agenda packet. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. There is a timer before you and before us, and we ask that you please voluntarily comply there. Those who would like to speak, even in addition to those that are here, we ask out of courtesy that you fill out a comment card. It is not a mandate, but it is certainly appreciated so that we can maintain the order of the speakers. We also would like to recognize Mayor Gordon Sands. We lack her for being with us today. Thank you so much, Your Honor, and we appreciate it. Okay, yes, sir.
Councilman John Lahart's here from the town of Interlochen.
Okay, Councilman,
John Lahart, he's here from the town of Interlochen.
okay.
John?
Welcome this morning, Your Honor. Thank you so very much. Okay, we are getting additional cards in, but we will start with the cards that we currently have, and then we will assimilate them. And the assimilation of the cards is based upon whether or not a person is wanting to speak concerning just the public input, or whether they have a specific agenda item, and so that's how the sorting process takes place. Mr. Butch Etzel, if you will please come forward. I understand your subject is related to St. John's Ship Building. Thank you for being here, sir. Following here will be James Harold Jr., Pinellas Lane and St. John's Ship Building entrance as well. Good morning, sir.
Good
Can you
morning.
state your name again, just for the record?
My name's Butch Etzel. I live at 527 Stokes Landing Road. I live across the street from the shipyard, and it's come to my attention that the county's fixing to build them a $6,500 move to the side, kind of out of the way, they're shifting their driveway over. And it's come to my attention that it's public money, it's our tax money that's building them a driveway. And Mr. Palacier came down there with me and son, he met the other day down, and I was standing there listening to everything that was going on. Because like I say, I live across the street from the shipyard. And I do want this county commission board to know that I've been down here before about the shipyard. I didn't agree with it back then. I still don't agree with it. I'm not trying to get off track here. They shoot assault rifles over there, and it's like shooting an assault rifle in my front yard, and it's nothing illegal. They can do that. But back on the agenda about the driveway. 2010, a person living down Pinellas Road took a miniature trackhoe. He dug my driveway out of my piece of property next door to me. I have no driveway to that property. So it's kind of like I'm landlocked. Yes, I own the lot next to it, but I got a fence up, and I don't feel like tearing my fence down. That happened in 2010. And like I said, it's come to my attention now, we're going to pay for the shipyard to adjust their driveway over so it'll look good to drive straight off Pinellas into their shipyard. Well, if you're going to build them a $6,500 driveway out of my tax money, okay, I went to every avenue I could go to get my driveway put back. I called the county. I called the sheriff out there. The man admitted to tearing my driveway out. Okay, I got the police report where he admits to taking my driveway out. Said his house didn't drain that good up Pinellas Road. That was none of my concern. My driveway was that piece of property where there used to be a double wide. Came along, brought it to my attention. I didn't know my driveway was gone. He done it while I was in church on Sunday. A man gave me a $20,000 double wide that he had completely remodeled. In 2010, the economy went south, as we all know, okay? I lost my job, okay? So I didn't have the money to file a lawsuit, but a man gave me a double wide. He said, all you gotta do is pay my men to set it up. That would have made me a better home to live in, a much better home. My wife brings it to my attention. She says, they can't put that double wide over there. I said, oh, yes, they can. There was a double wide there. I'll get the septic passed and everything. She said, there's no driveway. So I lost a $20,000 home. I got a hold of the county. I got a hold of the state's attorney. I got a hold of everybody I thought within my feeble mind I should get a hold of to go through the chain of command, so to speak. Nobody would do nothing for me. They said it was not done maliciously, so he committed no crime. Over $4,900 put my driveway, and I'm unemployed. I didn't have it. I still don't have it. I still don't have a driveway. I'm entitled to some of the public funds of building me a driveway. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edsel. We certainly can shed additional light on your concern as it relates to the entrance of St. John's Shipbuilding. If you have the time and you maintain the interest there, you certainly have mentioned multiple issues when you came up here concerning your driveway and this driveway area. In this process of this road building, out of the need for additional public right-of-way and things of that nature, there was a shifting as a part of that project. But if you do need the attention given to your concerns, we certainly can set up a time so that you can meet with everybody that can help you fully understand the process. There is nothing that transpired in this project that was not properly vetted, and that it does not, it meet 100% the intent of the law as well as the economic development for that area. So thank you. I beg your pardon? No, sir. I want you to set up the time. We will meet. Okay, well, if that's the way you feel, then you don't need to. Okay, well, thank you for your opinion on that as well, but we do disagree on that. Mr. Harrell, your next speaker, sir.
Description of the driveway to St. John's Shipyard. I'm Sonny Harrell, James L. Harrell Jr. Thank you for your civility, as I know I'm very superficial in your eyes regarding this. To enlighten myself, I requested a job description of the proposed fence relocation for the St. John's Shipbuilding facility, in which the county has authorized $6,400 of Better Place Plan funds. I was hoping that I would be enlightened and would change my opinion, that is my personal opinion, that it is a waste of taxpayers' money, and also I would be found completely wrong in saying that the county is using public funds on private property, but I still come up with the same conclusion in most aspects. I also called my county commissioner, Mr. Walt Palacia, who graciously met with me at the shipyard at supper time. And he was most helpful and helped me see some of my miscalculations I had made regarding the area. I am 63, and I took calculus back in 1973, calculus 1, but obviously I can't do simple geometry now. But anyway, he clarified how I made a mistake there. But Mr. Palacia was very helpful, but I still have some issues and concerns. Note the diagram I have handed out that I have received from Public Works. Also note on the diagram that the highlighted area in yellow, a handwritten entry saying deeded over to the county. I am a little confused as I went first to the property appraiser's office and then to the courthouse recording office unit, and I was told that there was no transaction had been recorded. So I have a question of whether this is county property or not, if the deed has not been recorded. Also on this incident diagram, there is a handwritten entry that says relocation gate, relocated gate. Well, I looked at the property along with Mr. Palacia, and I do not see by my limited ability, as I am very superficial, as you say, any difference in this survey and where the existing fence and gate are now. And it doesn't show any difference on there. This makes me wonder if a new fence is going to be erected at the same place, which gives more evidence to my personal opinion that this is a waste of taxpayers' money. Another issue comes to my mind also. First, if the fence is relocated, if it is relocated, will not the county be working on some portion of private property when they tear down the old fence and move it to the new fence? Either when they are tearing it down or either putting it in the new place. If you just own this little piece of property and you're moving it somewhere, you're going to either be on private property sometime or another. Like y'all have pointed out to me, I am very superficial, and I thank God that I am.
Stay on point, Mr. Harrell.
Okay,
This
I
has
thank
nothing to do
God
with
that
you
I
being-
am, that way, because I only see what's on the surface. And the surface is that something's wrong. I mean, for y'all to say for years, the county commission, y'all weren't on it, but
Please summarize.
county commissioner said for years you couldn't use public funds for private property. Well, you're gonna put 12.5 tons of asphalt, 177 square yards of lime rock, 122 yards of base, and 140 foot of fence. What is yet to be private property because it hadn't been recorded. That's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Harrell, for sharing your concerns. Again, what you have is a sketch here. This project certainly is a major project, and once it's all said and done, the relocation of the gate, the acquisition of right-of-way, and all of those various things do have to go through a process in order to be finally recorded. So again, we appreciate your concerns being raised. The next speaker on the public input is Faye Sparkman. Ms. Faye Sparkman. Okay, thank you. I'll pass it around. Thank you so much.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I gave you a picture today of the front and back. It was Fire Station 4 in Interlock, and they had an appreciation dinner on Saturday night at 5 o'clock for all of our volunteer firefighters. And so we took some pictures. And on the back, you'll see the one man where the chief is talking right next to the cake. That man on our board went out and got 45 businesses and citizens donated everything that they had to eat. Gift certificates, the stack was about this high. And so I wanted to let the public know, thank you for all the help. And then I do have one question for you, Mr. Flagg. I watched Channel 47 the other night and I sort of got a little bit upset.
Okay.
Is there any public record that tells what's actually in the water of the city that we go, when we leave here, we go out to eat or drink? Is there any public record tells us what's in that water?
Yes, ma'am. The water plant that the city operates, the water plant that the county operates in East Palatka, and all water plants are regulated, and there are reports that are filed to indicate what's in the water, what's not in the water, and if there are issues that ever come up, lab testing is required by the state law and compliance. And if there is anything that is adverse, such as any infiltration that happens as a result of a broken line, then boil water alerts and any other notifications that's required does take place. And we do follow the law on that. Now, when you start talking about the city of Palatka's plant, then this forum cannot address that. It would have to be the city's city commission's forum.
I understand that, but when I saw it going from the dump to the city, that upset me, because when I have my family come here and my friends, we like to come to town and eat or drink. When we leave here, we like to. So I want to make sure that the water I'm drinking is safe. That's
Okay.
what I want to know.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused. Are you talking about the leachate that is put into the
Right,
city's
so is that-
wastewater
is that
system?
seeking- But my problem is that seeking into the ground, and are we all going to be sick from that? I guess that's my
Those
question.
lines are, again, I think people get confused about stormwater lines, sanitary lines, and then the water system itself. The water system is a contained system. People that own well and septics can appreciate when they're on a municipal system because you don't have that infiltration issue that's there. So there is no relativity to the issue with the leachate being put into the city's system and the water supply. It's just two totally different, separate systems.
So it's okay to keep going and drinking my coffee and my tea, correct?
I don't drink coffee, but I drink the water.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Mary Kay Ingle King, you're next. Please come forward. Good morning.
I have to do this a little bit. The lights are a little bright on my eyes these days. Thank you for allowing me to come and speak to you.
Put the mic closer to you,
Oh,
please.
sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, we can.
All right. Houston, we've contacted. All right. I'm here today regarding, is there a way that I could ask Mr. Jakovovich a question? It's
Should-
regarding culverts.
Okay, if you would do that at his office when.
I've been trying to get in touch with Mr.
Okay, I'm
Jakovovich.
sure-
He's very, very busy.
Okay, well, he'll make time before he leave today. If you have issues to bring before us, please, ma'am, keep talking. But if it's for him.
I will keep talking then if I
Okay.
can't ask him the
Well, you
question.
can ask him when you finish, but you're taking up an entire community's time to ask him a personal question.
Well, just kind of chalk it up to the time I didn't get a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, Ms. Ingle King,
All
I
right,
don't mean any
this is-
harm.
this is-
Please
this-
address this commission. That's all I'm asking.
I'm trying to.
Okay,
I'm
thanks.
trying to right now.
Okay,
I would like to know, since I have to address you and the rest of the commissioners, who gave Putnam County Public Works the authority to put in a culvert at 131 Cracker Swamp Road? The county ordinance, Ordinance 7, says the county cannot install driveway culverts to private property. This is a culvert to a private property. Who gave Public Works, and the county did it, because first of all, they didn't get a permit. It's not under code. Who gave them the authority? Since I can't ask Mr. Jakovovich, I'm asking you.
yes, ma'am, you can certainly ask him between you and him, y'all can meet after this meeting. We do not have information on this address that you're giving us. We're making notes as you speak, and we can certainly get the answer.
Well, I kind of feel everybody knows because it's not the first time. There's other areas in the county where the county has come in and put in driveway culverts on private property. And I'm sure there's more on the list to continue. In fact, I know that everybody here is aware of this being done. Now, I have to put in a culvert, and it's gonna cost me $1,800. So if the county is breaking their own ordinance by giving out free culverts, then I want you to pay for my culvert, and you should really reimburse everyone else in the county that's had to pay that $100 fee, hire an engineer, wait for the inspections, and go through the proper procedure of putting a culvert in. This is not being done. So whoever is doing it, and it has to come from one of the commissioners to have that kind of authority, then that's not right and fair and legal and ethical by Florida statute and by the Ethics Commission. So beware, we're out there, but I think you need to pay for my culvert since you're giving free ones. And I don't have to meet with Don afterwards. Don knows where they are. Don has to do what a county commissioner tells him to do. And you're putting in illegal culverts on private property at county residents' expense, our taxpayer dollars' expense.
Thank you for your observation, Ms. Ingle King. We do have a legal department, and if you have the facts, please present the facts. It will be properly investigated, and we will follow up. Thank you so much.
Well, I think Mr. Leary and Mr. Castleberry have already written off on this one. In the future, the ones that are going to be done in the future, they've already signed off on it.
Okay,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
okay, it's okay,
I
counsel.
will meet with you.
She-
Can I
she-
meet with him right afterwards?
you
Am I
can-
allowed to
well,
talk to him?
It just depends on his schedule and your schedule, but thank you
Okay,
so
so we're
much.
passing the buck again.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, Ms. Ingle King, thank you so much. Ms. Ingle King, you are out of order. Ms. Ingle King, please be seated. Mr. Robert Bly, you're the next speaker. Please come forward. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Robert Bly, 116 Sand Lake Drive, Pomona Park, Florida. I've run into some concerns recently, and first of all, I want to congratulate and thank the Honorable Commissioner Flagg for helping us with directing complaints to the FDLE, the Ethics Department, etc. And I would like to ask for your help again, this time concerning official documents that may or may not have been modified or otherwise tampered with. If you wouldn't mind, could you tell me what the best method for reporting that would be?
I'm not sure what you're talking about with me helping you the first time. You may need to refresh my memory. If you're having, what is the specific issue, Mr. Bly?
Well, I don't want to get into specifics.
Well, I mean, what is the overall,
well, let's say that we make a video here today,
okay,
and let's say that someone says something and maybe they don't want other people to hear it. And when we go to look at the video, it's not on there. We know it happened because we were here, but when we go to look at the video, we don't see that part. And
Okay.
when I make that statement to someone saying, I was there, I saw it, and they say, well, I watched it and it wasn't there.
are you speaking of something that happened among the 5 legislators that we were engaged
it's
in
possible.
conversation? Okay, now you're saying it's possible. Is that what
Like I
you're
said, I
speaking-
don't want to get into specifics
I
about
don't
it,
need
but
you to
it's
get
just
into
a general.
specifics, but I need to drill down to the reality of, are you talking one of the 5 district county commissioners were engaged in a conversation with a citizen or with an applicant or with someone before us, and you're saying that it's not on the video? Is that what you're saying, sir?
That's very possible.
You're using the word "it's very possible." I think if you would tell me yes, I can address that. If you tell me no, then I can address that. But when you say
I
it's
have
very,
learned my lesson,
okay,
and I will not present something that's not factual
Okay,
until
let
I
me-
have
let me
that
s-
fact
okay,
with me.
Let me say this to you, and I want to say this to all of our citizens. If, in any way, shape, form, or fashion, the county government is engaged in any unlawful practice, by all means, you go to the proper authorities, file whatever needs to be filed so that it can be properly handled, because I really become weary of the conspiracy theory of what we're doing. I don't engage in conversations with my colleagues here. We have sunshine laws and things of that nature. We are accused of a lot of things. The rumor mill is alive and well in our community. So I don't have time to invest in innuendos and rumors and things of that nature. But if you really have some facts, and that goes for all of us, if you have some facts on anything that is illegal, immoral, or whatever the situation is, and it's not based upon rumors, by all means, go to the authorities and make sure that you get a case pulled so that it can be properly investigated, so it's no appearance of some type of cover-up, because I really, again, I don't want to be involved in, I don't want to be labeled as a group of individuals who are corrupt and that we don't do things by the law, because I have not been involved over the season that I have been in county government with anything that has been illegal or immoral.
Well, thank you for your help. I
Yes, sir.
appreciate that.
Thank you so
And,
much.
Next time, I'll make sure to have my specifics here that I can put up on the.
Thank you very
my
kindly,
report.
sir.
Thank you.
All right, Miss Elizabeth Bacon-Smith, you're next. Good morning.
Elizabeth Bacon-Smith, 203 Morrison Road, Interlochen, Florida. This is to hand out flyers to all of you, but for the public who may be watching this, I'll read the content of the flyer.
Okay.
It's an invitation to all of you to attend what is called a PACE, P-A-C-E, information meeting. It stands for Property Accessed Clean Energy. And it's at 7 o'clock on Thursday, this Thursday, May 14th, at the Edgar Johnson Senior Citizens Center on Westover Drive. The address is 1215 Westover Drive. It's sponsored by the Putnam County Environmental Council. And I'll read you what it's about. PACE is a national program currently working in 4 areas of Florida to finance energy efficiency and water conservation upgrades to buildings, with updates for heating and cooling systems, lighting improvements, solar panels, water pumps, and insulation. Local governments can sponsor PACE financing to create jobs, promote economic development, and protect the environment. It can be used for almost any property: homes, commercial, industrial, nonprofit, and agricultural. Find out how to bring PACE to Putnam County. PACE was named one of the top 20 world-changing ideas by Scientific American magazine. Now, I won't really understand this until I go on Thursday night. It doesn't really make it totally clear how it all can come to be, but I am hoping that you will attend, someone will attend, the public will attend, because it looks like a possibly great opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Bacon-Smith. Let me declare my conflict tonight. My daughter is one of the top 50 seniors, and I will be at PHS Commons, so I do have a conflict, and I'm sure we'll be represented, though. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I saw this presentation at convention last year, but I also have a conflict. I'll be in Flora Home that evening, so I've already committed to that, but I do understand this program.
It surfaced a couple years ago.
It was presented at the Regional Planning Council.
Okay, great. So we do have commissioners that have been exposed to this national program there, and so anything and any good that can be derived from it, we certainly want to maximize the opportunity. So thank you, Ms. Bacon-Smith. Our next speaker is Ms. Roxanne Weeks, and her concern is the Animal Control Advisory Board. Come forward, Ms. Weeks.
Good morning. My name is Roxana Regan Weeks. I reside at 205 Nellie Street, Palatka. As many of us have known for years, conditions at animal control have at one time or another been unsanitary, unlawful, and inhumane towards the animals. Disease has resulted in mass kills, kennels are filthy and lack proper disinfecting, staff appears to be burned out, and despite all the media attention, promises, and publicity releases to polish that tarnished image, little changed in 3 years since national attention was brought in February 2012, until just recently. I want to thank the staff of Planning and Development who have listened to the concerns of myself and others and actually taken action to ensure animal control staff are being retrained, policies and the law are being followed, and conditions are upgraded. After I came before this board last month and cited Florida statute regarding spay and neuter requirements and the out-of-county adoptions, a new set of adoption papers were quickly created conforming to the law. There's still a long way to go, and especially in addressing the continued use of heart-stick euthanasia, but at least we're actually seeing actions instead of the same tired talk, excuses, and delays. And to ensure that continues, I'd like to address the Animal Control Advisory Board. It was unofficially created years ago by former Commissioner Linda Myers, and her appointments are still the majority of members who are ineffective, mostly uninformed, and have done little to better the conditions. I go to these board meetings, which are hostile, confrontational, and lack purpose. Commissioner Lible has, for the most part, been the chairman and liaison of that board, and I would now ask this board that he step down, the informal board be disbanded, and this commission officially create an animal advisory board with at least 5 members appointed by the municipalities with set terms and a new chairman to be determined. I also ask that you commit the needed funds, which are available, to animal issues, since not only by law is this a matter of public safety, we're talking about living innocent beings that we are responsible for. We have to take responsibility for this. And these smoke screens, the continued talk, the excuses, it's not acceptable anymore. It's been 3 years. And like I said, I again thank Planning and Development. I hope to continue working with them, and I would like to see funds committed by this commission. Thank you.
Thank you very kindly, Ms. Weeks. We also compliment and commend our planning leadership and the team that we all know that the department is in transition, and we do see the improvements, but thank you for sharing your opinion. All of the additional cards that I have are either related to the zoning issue in Melrose, the public hearing on the local gas option tax, or the Fort Gates Ferry. Ms. Sarah Vines, are you speaking on which case? Ms. Sarah Vines? Is Ms. Vines still here? Okay, because she inadvertently put the Parks and Recreation zoning map amendment, so it is the Melrose issue. Okay, it's 8B. You checked 8A, but that's fine. We'll make that adjustment. Okay, we're about to close public input. Are there any others that did not fill out a card? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Keep coming, sir. You're fine.
Good
Yes, sir.
morning.
Good
John
morning.
Spells, 106 Citrus Lane.
Yes, sir.
All right, I got a question. How many engineers do this county actually have? 3, 4, how many? I'm just trying to understand something. As far as road work and all of that there.
The Public Works Department,
Yeah.
I don't have that answer before me right now.
Well, even if you got one, I'm trying to understand something. Why would y'all go down West River Road and start milling it and paving it? Now you're out there ripping it up to put drains under the road. I don't understand that. And instead of them having enough time to go and clean ditches, I never seen a county dig maybe 100 yards down the road, jump up, leave, go way over on the other side of the county, dig 100 yards. They're just jumping like rabbits all over the county. This is one incomplete county. And you said yourself, Mr. Flagg, that you wanted McCormick Road fixed. Had you been over there and looked at that crap they did in that right in front of the post office?
No, sir.
All right, if you go over there and look, and you know, it don't make sense that the county is constantly running from one place to another. This is one place that never completes anything. Have you looked at the fire station? It's a shame y'all stand up here and tell these firemen that y'all really appreciate them, give them plaques, and the men's got to stand out there in front of the building and water from the holes in front of the building and wash the fire trucks. You go right up in the East Palaca on Lewis Bride, they did some type of patching or something in the road. They still got barricades and cones that's been there now over 2 weeks. You go down the next block, they got a big mound of mud or something. They done patched the hole in the road. It don't make sense how y'all get up here and honor these guys that they doing such a well job, and y'all don't know if you don't know what you can do without them, then you might well don't do nothing, because they was way over there on West River Road, on Harbor Road, cleaning the ditch. They left from over there to go all the way to East Palaca to install a culvert that the lady was talking about along a field. And I don't understand, why do they jump around instead of completing that area and be finished? All right, Milligan Road, they started working on Milligan Road. The road looked just like that there, where they just dumped milling and knocked it down. Now that it's compressed, you won't hardly be able to go back and correct that there. But I still don't understand why they're not finished cleaning the ditches up. As soon as they start milling again, they go dumping more and it just runs down into the ditch. I don't understand, why would you even have engineers, give them the title of engineers, and you can ride around the county and look at the conditions and the quality of the work and call them engineers. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Spells, for your commentary. Okay, yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Willie Filozen, 129 East Cowpen Lake Point Road, Hawthorne.
You fill
So
out.
I filled out the comment card for
Fort
Fort
Gates.
Gates Ferry Road, but I was told that you couldn't make public comment during the consent agenda.
Okay, you were not told correctly.
Okay,
When a
sorry.
citizen says that they would like for us to discuss a specific issue, then we do honor that request. So
great.
I'm sorry you had been misinformed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. We will close the public comment section of the agenda, and we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Okay.
Calling the commission meeting back in session. Thank you for the privilege of having a short recess. This time we will move to the consent agenda for discussion purposes. Commissioners, item E under 6, we will pull for discussion. Are there any other items to be pulled for discussion purposes?
I have none, sir.
I have none.
I have none.
I was going to pull item E. I'm glad you did that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very kindly. At this time, I'd like our Public Works Director to please come, give an overview on the Fdot scot agreement for reconstruction of Fort Gates Road and from State Road 19 to Mount Royal, and the, just give us an overview, and then we will go from there. We have several citizens, and I'm sure some commissioner input as well.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This project is to pave the road from State Road 19 to the Fort Gates Ferry, through the forest, on the forest road that's there right now. I believe it's 62 and 29 are the two roads. And when we get to the ferry, we're skipping over the river, and we're paving the road leading out from the ferry to County Road 309. So we'll be paving on both sides of the road. It's to connect the two main arteries in the county. Every year we get funds from the DOT for certain projects that allow us to do major roads and major connections within the county. So we requested funds from the state to be able to do that. It would be great if we had a bridge in that area, but we don't have a bridge, but this would act as another way to connect the county.
Okay, thank you very kindly. Honorable Gordon Sands, you're the next speaker. Good morning, sir.
Gordon Sands, 2 Mill Street, Willaca, Florida. And I think this is an item that I just had to say something about, and I thank Nancy for pulling it and all. But I think all of you know, and many before, my feelings, this is one of my pet before I pass on, I want to see that road paved. I want to see that road paved in the next few years. I don't know how many times we have gone and fought for that road, the commission has, and work's been done on the ferry headers and all that, but still, anybody that hasn't ridden realizes that we have not any manner of meeting the potential that is paved. Tourism is one of our major desires in this county now. And Nancy, you know Blue Ways, that is a crown, this will be a crown to Blue Ways. No longer will you see gold wings and Harleys laying on their side there trying to go down a ferry road that they've never seen before. There's nostalgia, there's history, there's so much there. But it will really set South Putnam apart on tourism. You realize the traffic that will flow through there? It'll be wonderful for Willaca. This is what we're looking for. It fits everything. I don't know how anybody can argue about it. I'm sure someone will, but it'll be a blessing to the county, to tourism, to everyone involved. It'll far surpass even bicycle trails. Thank you so much. Please vote.
Thank you so much. Mr. Earl Ballinger, you're next. Morning,
Earl
sir.
Ballinger, 496 Clifton Road, Crescent City. I don't share the mayor's concern with this. I've got a problem is this road is 8 miles long. As long as I have lived down there, I have never, ever seen a car on that road. I'm sure there are cars that use it. I have read in newspapers where people cross the ferry and all this and all that. What criteria is used to pick this road over other roads in Putnam County that needs paving? You know, they're weighted, and I don't know exactly how. Did someone take a traffic study on this road to find out how much traffic is on it? Compared to, say, the traffic study at, Hunter Road, the lady usually comes up and speaks about Hunter Road. Has anybody studied the traffic between the two? I mean, Hunter Road is scheduled in 2017 for the same thing. What put this one in front of Hunter Road? I don't know. I would like to know that.
Okay, we're gonna have some commission discussion on your question and the others as they come. I want to get all of our citizens to state their position on this, and then when the commissioners deliberate, they will certainly be addressing your concern on that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Willie DeLucin? Good morning, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Willie Thalosen,
DeLucin.
129 East Calpin Lake Point Road, Hawthorne. First of all, I want to apologize to Tony because I misunderstood what she said about speaking during the public comment. So I apologize. I'm concerned about the paving of the Fort Gates Ferry Road because of its scenic nature and the fact that it passes through a remote area of the Ocala National Forest, which has many rare and endangered plant and animal species. So I think, you know, ideally the road wouldn't be paved. If it does get paved, I would hope that the scenic nature and the importance of protecting the wildlife species would be considered in the planning of it. You know, somehow just considerably more traffic, and I imagine once the road is paved, there'll be a bridge coming next and increase traffic even more. So, you know, the amount of mortality to these species that are protected within the forest now would increase greatly. You know, State Road 40 is a huge problem for the forest because of, you know, encounters with bears and other large animals. In this area, there's small animals too, amphibians, snakes, that need protection. So if that road is paved, please consider keeping the scenic nature intact and the considerations of protecting the rare wildlife species, because truly, you know, they don't exist anywhere else. That's their little island. So
Your habitat.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your comments, sir. Mr. Richard Franz? morning, sir.
Good morning. Dick Franz, 149 Wall Lake Trail, Putnam Hall. I have a special interest in the Fort Gates Ferry Road. I've been, as a member of the faculty at University of Florida, I've been studying that road for years. And first of all, I think paving the road is a mistake, and there are a bunch of different reasons for that. For example, I studied road mortality on Paynes Prairie, and during the 5 years I studied that, 13,500 snakes were killed on that road. And the walls that are there now were generated because of that study. I've also been looking at the Ocala National Forest similarly. Some ideas. Wildlife mortality is one of them. Unwanted runoff. There are several wetlands that occur along that road. In fact, there is a sinkhole pond that sits right at the edge of that road at the mile marker 2.9. That pond is a breeding site for at least 3 endangered amphibians. What do we do with the runoff from the asphalt? There is going to be a lot more noise with cars moving up and down that road. One of the things that is really a concern, the habitat along that road is scrub, sand pine scrub, which is a community that burns explosively when it catches on fire. So there is a fire consideration. This also cuts, as Willie was saying, into the wildness of the community. And I look at this, the road as well as the ferry, as a rural treasure. And I would hate to see it developed. Now, I talked to Don yesterday about my concerns. I don't want it to be something that is done. I want something, I'd like to have an opportunity to continue with dialogue concerning the construction of the paving of that road. And I'm available for folks if you have specific questions about the distribution of wildlife. There are about 8 species of animals on that road that I've documented that are endangered or protected species one way or another, either by state or feds. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you so much for your commentary. Any other citizens wanting to speak on this particular subject?
Good morning. My name is Jill McGuire. I'm from Melrose, and I didn't put in a speaker card on this because I really wasn't aware of it until I got here. Just wanted to give a personal memory of when I first went on that ferry. And I agree that this is a really unique slice of Florida history, the ferry as it is, and the drive. Because of the condition of the road, you have to go very slow. You have to savor this wonderful wildlife area that if the road was paved, we'd all be going. If the speed limit was 45, we'd be going 60. I mean, that's sort of the way it works, it seems to me. And so I ask that you retain and save this wonderful piece of Florida history. Thank you.
Thank you very kindly. I'm going to close the public comment part of this meeting if there are no others to speak. Commissioners, District 1.
Yes, thank you. One of the reasons that we have wanted to pave that road is because it's a continuation of the Black Bear Trail that goes through the Ocala Forest. And one of the things we want to do is to celebrate the Fort Gates Ferry. It's Florida's oldest ferry. And we want people to be able to take that, and we'd like for them to come across from the forest over into Willaca and into South Putnam and look at all the nature and things that we have. So we look at it as a good thing. I hope we never have a bridge. I hope we always have the ferry, and the county supports that ferry and promotes it. But that was one of the main reasons, is to expand and connect the Black Bear Trail. we do have our Public Works Director who's worked on that. Don, I wonder if you could address the kind of road it's going to be. It's not going to be a super highway, I don't think. It's just, but I thought maybe you could address that.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could,
Okay.
Commissioner Harris,
District
while
two.
you're there, if you could address the concerns of Mr. Bouncy and where the funding came from, and the fact that we're just an administrator of the funding, you know what to say.
Yes, let me say first that the funding comes from the state, and it actually gets funneled down from the federal government, and it's through the SCOT program, the Small County Outreach Program. So it's funds that we have, and it's allotted to us every year to make improvements on dirt roads, and this is a dirt road, obviously. Our improvement is not going to be a super highway. It's going to be a small two-lane road. As two-lane roads go in the county, it's going to be actually smaller in width than the road is right now. When you go out there in the forest, it's a very wide dirt road. So we're actually going to narrow the road and put in a paved road. And our intention is to keep the speed limit down, possibly at 25 miles an hour on that road. So because we want that scenic aspect of that road. I'd like to make a comment about the concern for the endangered species along that corridor. We just received the NEPA report yesterday, which is the National Policy Environmental Protection, National Environmental Protection Act report, and it does state, as Mr. France said, all the endangered species, and the result of the report said that there was no likely impact to those endangered species if we follow the proper construction procedures, which also protects the runoff from the road into the wetland areas.
District 4, any comments?
Mr. Dukovich, this isn't actually Fort Gates Ferry the entire length from 19 down. It comes into Putnam County side, correct? It's really not the whole Fort Gates Ferry from the ferry all the way to 19.
It does go from the ferry to State Road 19. And then on the other side of the river, it goes from the ferry to County Road 309.
Okay.
I think to clear up what you're
Yeah,
asking, it doesn't come from Salt Springs.
Right.
No.
See, that's what I'm
No,
talking
it's
about. That's Marion
it's a
County.
Putnam County road.
Right, so it's going to come down Fort Gates and then come up Forest Road to hit 19.
Right.
Okay.
There'll still be quite a bit of dirt road left from where it diverts to the west, going towards 19, that it will continue south.
Right.
On towards Salt Springs will be dirt from that point on.
Okay.
District 5, anything else?
No, I'm good.
Thank you, Don.
Okay, thank you very kindly. Item 6A, list of committee minutes, recommendations distributed to become part of the record. 6B, list of correspondence distributed to become part of the record. 6C, emergency services, Synergy Construction contract extension to June 15, 2015. Judy Rawson Building Remodel Project at the Fairgrounds. Item 6D, administration declare surplus, authorize solicitation of sealed bids for 108 Carroll Drive in Larkin. 6E, Public Works, FDOT SCOP agreement for reconstruction of Fort Gates Road, $2,250,000 from State Road 19 to Mount Royal. G, General Services, list of surplus inventory. What is the pleasure of the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second?
Proper motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 7 on the agenda is a time certain, 9:20 or thereafter, and certainly we are thereafter on several issues this morning. Public hearing, Scott Modisette, Summit Professional Services. First public hearing of 2 that's required for the federal fiscal year 2014. Small Cities Community Development Block Grant, AKA CDBG, application, selection of grant categories and authorization to prepare applications to the DEO, and this is a public hearing. Good morning, and thank you for being here, sir.
Good morning, members of the commission. I'm Scott Modisette with Summit Professional Services. Thank you for having me. I'm here today to conduct the first public hearing that's required for the county to apply for a 2014 fiscal year community development block grant. There are 2 public hearings that are required for the county to apply. The purpose of this hearing, I'm going to go over the different grant categories and allow public comment on needs that the county might have. And I'd also like the commission to select which categories to pursue. We've done these community development block grants for a number of years with the county. The Community Development Block Grant Program, or CDBG, is a federal program through HUD. Some larger communities receive a direct allocation from the federal government. Putnam County has the ability to apply through the state-administered Community Development Block Grant Program. The state receives around $28 to $35 million each year, which is allocated through a competitive grant process. The applications will be due June 22nd of this year. There are 3 national objectives that the program has to meet. The first being that the project benefit low and moderate income persons. The second being prevention or elimination of slum or blight, or the third being urgent community development needs. The state generally requires that the projects benefit low and moderate income persons. Just in this year, they have allocated some funds for elimination of slum and blight under one of the categories that I'm going to go over. But generally, with the projects we look at for the county are going to benefit low and moderate income households. You have the ability to apply for 2 different grants during the cycle. One would be under the regular category cycle, and that's a $750,000 grant. And then you also have the ability to apply for an economic development category grant. Under the regular category grants, you are eligible for 2 different types of projects. The first one would be a housing rehabilitation program, which we've done in the past. We just completed one about a year ago. That program would allow the county to assist homeowners, it's owner-occupied homes, with physical improvements to the home to bring them up to code to address health, safety, or code issues. Anyone that applies for that grant who would receive assistance would have to be low and moderate income persons. We typically look at doing, with the grant awards you would get, probably around 10 to 12 homes. And as I mentioned, you've had success with that application in the past, and we've implemented that several times. The other category you have the ability to apply for is the Neighborhood Revitalization Program. That would provide infrastructure improvements. It could be water, sewer, road paving, stormwater, any type of public infrastructure, with the caveat being that it would have to be in a designated low-income neighborhood. Typically, as your grant consultant, what we do in assessing the competitive nature of the applications is look at your score, whether you have matching funds. When you apply, you have to select either housing rehabilitation or neighborhood revitalization. You can't apply for either or. So we would need a decision from the commission on which one to apply for. Typically, you have scored better in the housing rehabilitation program. We're able to couple your SHIP funding that's allocated along with the CDBG, which allows you to receive additional points with leverage. The neighborhood revitalization program, we would really need a concentrated, dense neighborhood of low-income persons. We establish the income requirement by going out and actually doing household income surveys in the area. So I'll be asking today for the commission to select one or the other under the regular category grants. I met with your Citizen Advisory Task Force last night for your Community Development Block Grant. They did endorse a housing rehabilitation grant. There was some discussion on paving throughout the county, particularly on San Mateo, Fern Street, and Woods Road. Some of our discussions involved there's a cost benefit associated with the grant, and I'll have to look geographically what houses are in this area, but I don't know that the cost of paving some of the roads that were involved, it sounded like there were maybe only 2 or 3 homes, and it would be a lot of money expended, and that would really lower your score under that category. So if you spend a lot of money, there's a certain number of homes that we have to serve, but I can continue to look at that, but I wanted to convey the comments from the CATF as we discussed last night. Under the, there is a commercial revitalization category as well. City of Palatka has gotten that several times. I think they are implementing one now. A lot of the riverfront work that you've seen has been done through that. That category requires that the service area or the community be at least 51% low to moderate income, which the City of Palatka meets. The county itself does not meet that, so you're not really eligible to apply for that. So really you're looking at whether you want to do housing rehabilitation or neighborhood revitalization. You're also very fortunate, under this category, the economic development category in this cycle. In the past, you have not had I think you did one a little while ago that recently closed out. But the economic development category provides physical public infrastructure improvements for a business. If they want to locate here, it will requires job creation, commitment from the business, so it's kind of a public-private partnership. It doesn't pay for private site development. Everything has to be publicly owned, so it'd be a water line, sewer line. We've done electric distribution lines, turn lanes, any type of public infrastructure that the business would require. It can be an existing business, and you're currently in a position where you have an existing business that is interested in partnering with the county to expand and create jobs under this category. So we're still working with the business, and we're also talking with an engineering firm to develop some cost estimates on that. But you're in a position to apply as well for the economic development category. Typically in the past, you've been limited at $750,000 for this grant. They've raised that to $1.5 million, depending on the infrastructure needs of the business and also the jobs that would be required. So we're going to continue to work with the engineer and the business. It sounds like the business does have enough jobs that if it necessitated more than $750,000, it would be a justifiable grant request over the $750,000. That, as I mentioned, this is a public-private partnership. The business they're going to sign a commitment letter as part of the application process to create the required number of jobs. Just prior to the grant award, if the grant award is offered by the state, the business will sign a legally binding participating party agreement stating that they will create a specific number of jobs, and if those jobs are not created, they will repay the county, and then the county would repay the state for the funds that were put in for the infrastructure. So I'm here today to accept public comment on the categories and also to ask the commission to select which category you'd like to pursue under the regular category, and also to ask for your permission to continue to proceed with the economic development category. I will, depending on your selection today, we'll begin developing an application. We will conduct another CATF meeting, Citizen Advisory Task Force meeting, and I'll be back before the commission with a firm application with more specifics once the selections have been made. Thank you.
Thank you very kindly. This is a public hearing. Do we have any citizens here that would like to chime in on what you have heard? Commissioners, you have before you opportunity for the county to advance in making this application to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity on the CDBG regular as well as the special economic development classification. And I know when we hear more jobs, more jobs, more job, that is music to our ears, and we certainly want to do what we can to make that priority for our county because, again, we're behind. We acknowledge and accept the fact that we are, but we're not complacent and apathetic, knowing that. So we want to be as aggressive and progressive as we need to be. Commissioners' comments.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Flagg. One thing I didn't mention, the way that the economic development category meets the national objective of benefiting low and moderate income persons, 51% of the jobs that are created will be offered to low and moderate income persons. So I wanted to state that for the record as well.
Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Any comments? Commissioner Lyon.
I've got a little confusion on the difference between the economic development category and the other three that you mentioned.
Yes, sir.
Specifically the neighborhood revitalization.
Mm-hmm.
We can only choose one of these.
Right.
In each category, or one between the two categories?
You can choose one of the regular category grants, either housing or neighborhood revitalization, and you can also select the economic development category separately.
Very well.
Yes, sir.
So the recommendation is for us to approve the economic development category, and then the housing rehab is what the recommendation is from CATF.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, well, Mr. Chairman, I'll offer that motion that the application proceed.
We have a proper motion?
And a second.
And a second. Further discussion? Any additional questions, concerns? had time to consider. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you very much, and I'll be back before you with specifics on each individual project.
And thank you so much for your consulting services and how professional you are in coordinating and facilitating this process.
Thank you very much. I enjoy working with the county.
He was here late last night.
I can imagine so.
Yes, sir.
Scott.
Thank you.
All right. We'll move to item 8A, Planning and Development Services. We are still in public hearing mode. Case number R-15-001, Putnam County Parks and Recreation zoning map amendment from Ag to P1. It's found on page 55 in your board packets.
Give me a moment to boot up the computer here.
Okay. Mr. Harris Burns Cato, our planner, is our presenter this morning. And as soon as his computer boots up, then he'll boot up with it.
There we go.
Okay. Harris Burns Cato, Plan and Development Services. This is case R-15-001. The applicant is Putnam County Parks and Recreation Department, represented by Angie Weinsap. The applicant is requesting a zoning map amendment from agriculture to public use light. The subject parcel has a future land use designation of conservation and a zoning designation of agriculture currently. The Parks and Recreation has plans for the subject parcels to be passive park with trails, benches, picnic tables, shelters, etc. The future land use designation conservation allows for community facilities types 1 and 2. This is consistent with the zoning designation of public use light. So let's just go over some of the maps. Here's an aerial. Oh, forgive me, I forgot to mention, we are within the staff report, there were a large amount of parcels located over in the Hollister area. We're pulling those. We're just dealing with the Georgetown parcel for the rezoning. Okay. So here's the aerial of that the subject parcel over in Georgetown. And then here's the future land use. You can see the conservation future land use and rural residential elsewhere. And then also the agricultural land use or zoning. And then here's the wetlands, large amount wetlands and
Mr.
floodplain.
Burns Cato, you're gonna probably need to draw that mic
Yeah.
closer to you
Oh,
so that.
I apologize.
Yes, sir. Okay, let me make sure that I'm clear for the benefit of the public. You're speaking on 1431 County Road 309, Georgetown, Florida, just that one parcel and not the other parcels that are listed in 9 Mile Swamp?
Correct.
Am I correct in?
Correct. The ones over 9 Mile Swamp have been pulled from the rezoning application.
Okay.
All right, sir. You may continue.
Okay. And then you can see a large amount of floodplain and wetlands over on the shore of the St. Johns. So in closing, the staff recommends approval of the request to rezone the subject parcel from Ag to P1. The public use light designation is consistent with the conservation future land use designation of the comprehensive plan. This rezoning permits Putnam County Parks and Recreation to pursue plans to provide park amenities on the subject parcel.
I have a question.
What's the acreage on this site? Because we had a total acreage in our packet of 909 plus or minus acres because you had it all combined.
Correct. This one's roughly around 20 acres.
Okay. Commissioner Harris.
Okay, thank you. I guess the only problem that I wanted to clarify, it says that you're changing this so that the parcel will become a passive park with trails. I want to be sure that passive would not limit us having a boat launch and docks.
Well, within the zoning designation, that would be allowed.
Okay.
I use passive park to iterate the plans that I've seen from the management plan that was presented, which the Parks and Recs director will be able to espouse. But
Ms. Angie, will you come and elaborate on that, please?
Good morning.
Good morning.
The rezoning request is due to to meet the grant criteria. The county acquired the land. It was zoned in one particular area. In order to develop that property into a park, it has to be rezoned for us. Passive in the world of Parks and Recreation generally means things that are not as structured. For example, Theobald Park would be not considered a passive park. There are certain areas there that are designated for certain activities, so passive is more along the lines of boat ramps, trails, picnic areas, green space.
Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Any other questions of our director?
If you could, I mean, what are the grants like in recreation now? Are we still doing the Fdot
Yes, sir.
applications and
Yes, sir.
nothing's really changed there? It's been a while since we've had one of those.
It has been some time. We have applied the past 2 years, and we have scored. FDOT grants are extremely competitive. Those dollars come down from the states. For approximately the past 6 to 7 years, there have been no dollars allocated from the state for the large projects, and that's where we have been applying. The large projects are at the $200,000 mark. They have been funding projects that were $50,000 and under.
Okay, so this helps that effort considerably.
Yeah, we would need to develop a project that was under $50,000. You can apply in both categories. We have been applying for the category at the $200,000 mark because there's a significant amount of development that needs to take place. So we could certainly change that. We could apply in each particular category also.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions of our director? This is a public hearing. We would like to invite our citizens who choose to speak concerning the Georgetown parcel, which has been extracted as the sole parcel that we are discussing today. It does mean that this ordinance is revised so that it reflects only the Georgetown parcel. Close the public hearing at this time. Any further commissioner deliberations? Has there been any ex parte communication? District 1?
No.
District 2?
None.
District 4?
None.
District 5?
None.
District 3? None. What is the pleasure of this commission?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve this zoning designation.
Second.
We have a proper motion and a second that the zoning map amendment is authorized and approved for the Georgetown parcel. Further discussion? Had time to consider? District 1?
Yes.
District 2?
Yes.
District 3? Yes. District 4?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
Unanimous. Thank you very kindly. Really do appreciate it. Okay, item 10B is case number R-15002, Christopher Chiappini, zoning map amendment from C2 and R1A to C2. Let me just give us an overview of what type of hearing that we are engaging in. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. We do have certain protocols and procedures that we must follow as a board. There a need to be able to distinguish those who are considered interested parties that will be presenting on behalf of both the applicant as well as those who may be contiguous and directly affected. So in other words, the interested party, far interested party that is against, you certainly will have a prioritized order. We will also have public input in this process. The thing that I ask all of us to do is let's understand civility, let's understand the rules for the road. Any commentary that is being presented, ask that you present that commentary to this Board of Commissioners. You're not speaking to the audience. This is not a rally. This is an opportunity for us to hear this case and for us to make the best decision that is possible based on the law. If there's something that you feel needs to be clarified, that this board needs to zoom in on, please make your point, but make your point to us and not to the audience. Council, do you have any further guidance for us?
None other than an interested party would be someone who is actually going to present evidence for the board to consider and would subject themselves to cross-examination, as opposed to someone that just near the end of the hearing will have public input, which would be someone more of a generalized comments on their feelings about the rezoning.
Okay, So with the 150 cards, I am exaggerating.
Close. How much?
With the number of cards, I have no way of distinguishing who's interested party for, interested party against. And so how am I to determine, outside of my alphabetizing these cards, who is an interested party for or an interested party against?
Well, I think when we get to those segments, we will ask people if we'll ask who the interested party's for and against, and they will come forward, and I think at that point, we may be able to distinguish between whether they're truly an interested party that wants to present evidence and subject themselves to cross-examination, or whether they are content to be heard at the public input part of this.
Thank you, counsel, for your wise advice. We certainly, again, we feel the presence of the residents and the cards for you to be a part of the process. We're certainly appreciative of the fact that our citizens who do understand to the best of their abilities the process that we're having to go through. Thank you for your patience, and we're going to do our very best to be attentive, but we will also be abiding by the law in this, and we will certainly be leaning on our legal counsel. We'll be hearing, I'm sure, for some other counselors here as it relates to that. Okay, in our order, just for an overview, there will be introduction of the petition, staff presentation, applicant presentation, interested party for, interested party against, rebuttals, close of the formal proceedings, then we will have public input, and at that time, we will close the public hearing, and the commissioners will go through deliberation and vote. That will be the order in which we conduct this public hearing. So at this time, sir, if you will please come forward and lead us in this charge.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, this is case R15-002. The applicant, Christopher Chiappini. The agent is Concept Development LLC, represented by Matt Kaysen and others. The applicant is...
I'm not sure whether your mic, how close you are to it, but they are...
I try not to get too close because I don't like the popping that I make.
They're giving me some signals out there that they're not hearing you, and if they're not hearing you, then we don't want to have to repeat this today. So we want to make sure everybody hear you, sir.
I'll make a genuine effort.
Yes, sir.
The applicant is requesting a zoning map amendment from split zoning designation of C2 and R1A to C2 for the 1.52 acre property located on State Road 21 in Melrose. The front 200 feet of the property is Zone C2, while the remainder is R1A. The future land use designation of the property is commercial. The site has a mobile home on the premise currently. The need to rezone the subject parcel was first identified during the July Development Review Committee meeting, which is associated with case DRC 2014-003. The agent presented a 9,100 square foot commercial retail store, which will be located on the subject parcel and parcel 18-9-23-000-0940-0020. And so if we look at some of the maps that we have going on here, the subject parcel is outlined in a blue color, while the adjoined parcel that is a part of the development proposal has a red dot on it. And the mobile home is located on the westerly part of the parcel. Here is a future land use map, and you can see along the 26 and 21 corridor is commercial future land use, with the exception of the school, which is located in the southeast of the map. And then here's the zoning map, and you can see clearly the 200 feet of C2 in the front of the parcel, or the easterly part of the parcel, and then the R1A designation. However, you also see that the 26 and 21 corridor is largely C2. In fact, almost completely C2. So let's talk a little bit about comprehensive plan consistency and what it is that we're looking for what staff is looking for when we go for a rezoning. According to Article 12, when looking for rezoning, what we're looking for is whether the zoning use is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The future land use designation for this subject parcel is commercial, and that is to enable commercial enterprise, or commercial nodes, excuse me. However, what does it say about residential uses? Under the commercial future land use, the residential use is limited. In other words, the site must contain a conforming commercial use. The residential unit must be occupied by the owner or employees of that commercial use. The residential unit must be accessory or in use and size, and the residential unit must be placed at the same site as the commercial use. So it's not for residential activity. It's, you know, if there is any kind of residential activity, it's ancillary to the commercial use. The C2 zoning in the Land Development Code, we place the future land use designation, which is consistent with that zoning category. And you can see with the C2 zoning that rural center, urban service, urban reserve, and commercial future land use are consistent with the C2 zoning. While you look at the R1A, the commercial future land use is absent from the description, which makes the R1A designation inconsistent with commercial future land use. I wanted to put up what's allowed in the commercial 2 zoning district. Retail sales general, which is your convenience store, antique shop, stuff of that nature. Retail sales, food, restaurant, ice cream parlor, services. Give me a second. Services like hairstylist, banking, stuff of that nature. Office, you know, attorney, accountant. I'm having a malfunction. Okay. Commercial recreation and entertainment, that could be a bowling alley or arcade or something of that nature. Cultural, library, museum, civic, typically some kind of government building or government operation, and religious facility. So those are the primary uses under C2. So let's talk about concurrency in the development process. In the previous staff report, we had a transportation count which was away from the parcel. We tried to locate some traffic counts that were closer to the parcel. On State Road 21, we found a traffic count from Fdot back in 2013, which states that the southbound is 320 trips in the PM peak hour, while the northbound is 486. This is well below the 740 LOSD capacity of 21 and 26. But on 26, the westbound traffic is 294 in PM peak hour. However, the eastbound traffic from Alachua County is 714. This may pose a problem, but we don't know yet because we haven't done the concurrency analysis. And I'll explain why. So concurrency analysis is supposed to happen prior to development approval. What does that mean? Well, development approval happens at the issuance of a final development order. So here's the development process. The applicant comes in for a pre-application meeting with the staff. We go through, in the case of Class 2 and Class 3 development, they come through with a preliminary development plan review, which is the application, site plan, engineering, stuff of that nature, and then we go before a development review committee. At that point, the applicant is told, you know, given the ability to express what it is that they want to do, and the agencies are able to tell them what it is that they're going to run into when they go to submit their final development plan. At that point, in this particular case, we identified that the parcel needed to be rezoned to do what it is that they wanted to do. So then, if they pass through, if the development review committee approves that, then they are given the ability to, as long as the other conditions have been met, they are given the ability to go ahead for final submission. At final submission, they submit their site plans, and we do the concurrency analysis. We explain to the applicant what is expected of them from that concurrency analysis, and then they must achieve consistency with the concurrency by a number of measures. And then we provide them with a certificate of concurrency. And as long as the site plan engineering meets the Land Development Code and the Florida Building Code, then they are granted development approval. Are there any questions about what I just said?
Yes,
District 1?
thank you. If I understood you right.
I know there was a lot to process.
Okay, so they have already been to that board, and they have given them the go-ahead, and now we are going to look at the rezoning. But after the rezoning, they still have another step to prove concurrency before it's issued? But we go before that we make a decision before that concurrency is,
Correct. Yes, the rezoning, before they even can submit their final submission, the rezoning is gonna it happens first, and then they submit their final submission. At that point, so the preliminary development, we're not sure if that's, they propose a 9,100 square foot commercial structure. However, that may change at their final submission. And as I'll explain a little bit later, depending on what happens with concurrency, that may change during that process as well.
okay, I did have material that was submitted as that questioned the traffic and different issues. So we're not to consider that at this point. We're just supposed to consider the rezoning, and that will be taken care of in the concurrency portion later.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it's mandated by Article 5 that we do a concurrency analysis and that the applicant meets concurrency standards of the Land Development Code before they are issued a certificate of concurrency and development approval, which is their ability to go ahead and build the project.
Okay, so again, let me piggyback off of what District 1 Commissioner is saying. Once the concurrency is analyzed and you say they meet the criteria and the certificate is granted and so forth and so on, the submission is to who? Is it to the department, to the planning board, or back to this commission?
No, their final plan submission is through the Planning Development Services and then disseminated to the appropriate agencies for review, and it's an administrative process. It does not come back to the Board of County Commissioners.
So this public hearing is the end of any public hearing as it relates to the concurrency issue. I mean, in other words, any technicalities that the applicant would face, it would be administratively dealt with and not in a forum per se. So
Correct. Yes, concurrency is an administrative process.
Okay. District 2?
Well, pretty much along the same lines. So you're saying the concurrency numbers that we're dealing with right now is all we have to work with to make this decision. And there'll be another set of them that we have no decision over after this is done today.
Well, I would state that concurrency really isn't a part of the rezoning considerations as far as what the Land Development Code states for what it is that we're supposed to look at for rezoning. Rezoning is consistency with the comprehensive plan, and while concurrency is a part of the comprehensive plan, that is not supposed to be reviewed until the final development plan review, which is going to happen after which could happen, may happen, after the rezoning.
Okay, so the answer to my question is no.
Yeah.
Mr. Brown, you have something?
Yeah, just before Mr. Brown comes, council wants to interject something in.
I want to ask Mr. Harris Burns a question. What would happen if the board granted this rezoning and then the applicant came back to the planning department and said, I want to do one of these other uses that's allowed in C2?
Oh, they can change their plans, and we would, if they want to completely change what their use was, then we may go back and start at the preliminary development review and go through development review committee again.
So we're not sure exactly today what's going to be on that site.
No.
And therefore, that is why its concurrency is largely irrelevant at this point.
Yes, that is true. That is correct.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Let's see what Mr. Brown.
Let's hear from Mr. Brown, and then I hear from.
Thank you.
Mike Brown,
Commissioner
Planning Manager, Putnam County Planning Development Services. Just to reiterate this discussion, this is only a rezoning. We don't know what the final use is going to be. It's really no different than the rezoning you did previously.
You mean we have to pretend we don't know?
Yeah.
Let's be
Well,
honest.
I mean.
No, you don't know.
How, you don't know, because how many, I mean, Commissioner, we've worked for a number of years at this level, on the regional level. A lot of projects come in for some, saying this is what we want. When you get down to it, it's totally different. Anything within that category of C2 could happen at this site, if the rezoning is allowed. So it could be a pizza parlor, could be a bowling alley, could be a department store. We don't know that, and for that purposes, we can't do the concurrency at this point.
I think
don't
what-
see that.
I think what I'm hearing is that the department has to be impartial and unbiased about what they may be proposing to do, and because you're not dealing with what anybody has projected that may happen to the property, you've got to stand on neutral turf with this particular hearing.
All we're looking at is commercial C2 rezoning appropriate for this parcel?
Okay.
I'm gonna
That's
abide
all
by
what
the
we're
rules
looking
and
at.
regulations, but it's not fair that this stops the local level. Now we're going to the state level after this, and we have no
No,
more.
it's not going to the state level. This is illegal. This is
Said
local.
agencies,
This
what
is
agencies are they
rezoning.
going to?
No, this is a rezoning, which is a local decision.
After the rezoning.
After the rezoning, if they apply for a specific permit for a specific project, you're talking about water management and all of those other agencies administratively, and not,
But
it's not
they have to
anymore
get their,
boards.
they have to get whatever permits would be required
That's what he's talking about.
under our local codes. Just like everybody else in this county, any other property owner that wanted to develop their parcel. We send out for comments to those, but as any other development, that is an administrative, and the county has set that up in their land development code. I mean, from this point forward, as long as they want to do what's consistent with the future land use, which is commercial, and if the rezoning is approved within the C2, that is done administratively, just like every other parcel and development project in this county.
Thank you
This is
very
no
kindly.
different than
Go back to
anything else.
council, and I'm coming over to Mr. Harvey.
Just, I guess just an example, and I'm not trying to be flippant or anything, but the Walmart distribution center is a good example. Take a ride down 17 and see how it looks.
It's
not-
zoned,
it's not
but
there.
it's not there. Exactly. Understand. Thank you, council. Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has given me a lot of heartburn over here, and honestly, the traffic was a concern of mine. But now you've taken that off the table, correct?
Well, it's not off the table. It's
For discussion from commissioners, it's off the table.
correct. It is handled it's handled administratively, and they have to meet the requirements that are
Okay.
based in land development code and comprehensive plan to gain development approval.
And yesterday, I went to council with our packet to show that there's a building, proposed building on that site, that really, what I'm hearing now is we shouldn't even be looking at that proposed building on a site, because it might not be that proposed building, correct?
Is possible that that building will not be there, that it's not been firmed up yet. The reason that I provided that picture and the Development Review Committee material was because that was a committee meeting. It was a recorded meeting, and I wanted to be transparent.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very kindly. Any other commissioner comments or questions? You may
I'll
proceed,
continue.
sir.
Continue? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So where are we? Okay, so let's say they were to chip up the concurrency over on State Road 26, for instance. Well, they would have a number of ways to go ahead and meet concurrency. They could propose a comprehensive plan amendment which lowers the adopted LOS standard, possibly. They could reduce the impact of the development. This could be done in a number of ways. They could reduce the size of the building. They could, depending on what kind of enterprise it is, they could change the business hours. They could switch when
Any extra talking, the mic system is picking it up, and it does distract the commissioners from hearing the presenter. Thank you. Please continue, sir.
They can switch when employees come to the establishment. Another way, depending, typically for larger developments, they could do a phased development where you do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and infrastructure meets those needs at that point, on that timeline. And then finally, they could enter into a development agreement where the applicant assures the county that the developer will provide for the required public facilities, and they do this through cash escrow, irrevocable letter of credit, or prepayment capacity, or connection charges. So we have a system laid out within the land development codes which deals with these issues at that point in time. So switching gears to the Melrose Historic District, here's a map of the Melrose Historic District, and you see in green, that's the historic district, and then there's a little brown outlining, and that's the historic district buffer. And then there's a circle around the subject parcel, and is not within the historic district. However, the historic district has not had a committee named, and they have not gone through to make guidelines for the historic district. So it's really just the historic district and name only.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I
Commissioner
think
Harvey.
that's very important that you repeat that again, because since I've been appointed, that is in my area, and we have talked about that. But it's very important for the people to realize that they need to do their part out there to get this historic element applied to in Putnam County, because currently it's not there. I mean, we got it on map and in theory, but we haven't, the citizens out there have done not what they're supposed to do to get this really enacted out there. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. The outline for what it is that the historic district can do as far as architectural guidelines and the other functions of the historic district are outlined in the comprehensive plan and partly in the land development code. However, they have not been fleshed out because the committee has not done their has not been able to get to that point yet.
So in other words, it's an informal on paper, but not necessarily genuine by the book as far as what a created historic district.
Right. The foundation for it to legally happen is there. However, the meat of the architectural guidelines and other things has not been created by the committee.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Lible.
Okay. In the historic district, you've got them marked in green, and you've got a sandstone brown. Is that the buffer to the historic district that they're saying the property encroaches towards?
The buffer is the sandstone brown, and there is a parcel in between that sandstone brown and the subject parcel that we're speaking of.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
one
sir.
more. And this map right here, this historical element map, basically is what the citizens out in Melrose wanted to have done. Is that correct?
For historical perspective, I'm not going to be able to speak to that.
Okay.
Again, Mike Brown with the Planning and Development Services. Yes, I mean, back in 1992, when the comprehensive plan was adopted, the citizens in Melrose pursued and petitioned the county at that time to include the historic district as part of the future land use map and future land use element. And that's how this map was developed.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
So when they pursued the county to get, quote, the designation, we did it without any requirements of them having any official.
No, there was, as Harris had indicated, in the comprehensive plan, there are under that policy for the Melrose Historic District, there are, or within that objective, there are policies which discuss the formation of a citizens group or committee of landowners within that district that would, and steps that they would look at, which is, as Harris mentioned, architectural design, types of uses, and things like that. That committee has never been formulated from the history that I've looked at.
Okay, so in other words, it was created by request, but there has not been criteria achieved since it was created. Just want to make sure I'm clear on that.
Thank you, sir.
One more.
Commissioner Lible.
And no correspondence from the Melrose Business Association on the subject?
I have not received anything from the Business Association regarding this rezoning. I have not. I don't know if Harris has or not, but I haven't received any correspondence.
Continue, sir.
So, he's very tall. The applicant proposes to rezone the 1.52 acre subject parcel from a split zoning designation of C2 and R1A to entirely C2. This rezoning would rid the subject parcel zoning, subject parcel of the R1 zoning designation, which is inconsistent with the commercial future land use. Staff recommends approval for the proposed rezoning as it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And I want to iterate some points, kind of surmise what we've talked about. Planning development doesn't really look at doesn't want to interfere with how free enterprise interacts, as long as it if the use is consistent with that zoning, then we allow the use. In this particular case, what we're looking at is whether that zoning district is consistent with the comprehensive plan. In this case, the zoning district is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and we recommend approval for that. Another thing about the nature of the parcel and the split zoning, currently the back half of the parcel, which is zoned R1A, prevents development of any commercial enterprise due to that that split zoning designation. And for this applicant or any other applicant to be able to develop this parcel, it would have to be rezoned to a commercial node. Currently, we don't have we do not split zone properties. We zone whole properties. However, split zoning happened in the past, and we have been trying to remedy it as we go. If there are split zonings, or in other words, multiple uses on a property, those fold into the PUD overlay zoning district. But in this particular case, if somebody wanted to do a residential and a commercial use on this parcel under a PUD, it would not be allowed because the commercial future land use, that use is inconsistent with the commercial future land use.
Okay.
And that concludes my statements.
When was the flume created and the comp plan? What year did that come
1992.
about? When what?
1992.
It's been around a while.
Yeah.
Might as well.
Harris answered your question appropriately. The original flume was adopted in '92. There has been amendments since then. In 2010, we did ear-based amendments. The commercial land use in the Melrose area, anticipating, in my mind, not trying to put words in your mouth, but the commercial land uses in the Melrose area were in place in '92, and they have not changed since then. There have been other land use changes in the Melrose area. As you're aware, we removed some of the rural center area land uses in that area in 2010. But those commercial parcels, the commercial uses along 21 and 26 have been in place since 1992.
So in 2010, when we were addressing the rural centers throughout the county, this was one of them.
Yes.
I remember, and we made amendments to it then, but that's pretty much it.
But the commercial was in place, the commercial land uses were not touched. They've been in place in the Melrose area. They've been in place since 1992, the original adoption.
Okay.
So let's be mindful, the public does not know what flume is, future land use map, and EARs and things of that nature, so let's be sensitive to.
The flume is the future land use map.
Correct.
And EAR is the evaluation and appraisal report, which all local governments are required to do every so often, and the Putnam County did their last one in 2010.
Thank you very kindly. Is that the conclusion of your presentation, sir?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Okay, just before you leave, Commissioner Harvey has a comment.
Just to go ahead and get this on the record before we go much further, I did meet out there with Mr. Tisdale about the water pipe, the water line, the main water line that goes down 26 to the north and cuts under in front of Williamson's store, under 21, heading to the west, I guess really close to this property right here. Has the applicants been notified about this water line, as important as it is for the town of for the community?
Can we address that, council? Because we're talking about the applicant as in the zoning applicant, or are we talking about a facility? Because again, I want to make sure that we're dealing strictly with the zoning.
I think it's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, again, from our standpoint, Brian Hammonds, Planning and Development Services Director. From our standpoint, when we're processing rezoning, we do look at things like easements and that sort of thing. In this particular case, the utilities haven't produced any kind of easement. Their concern was that they didn't have one. And from our standpoint, we're not involved in that at all. That's a private real estate matter between two private entities and will not affect their development proposal or any development proposal on those properties. As far as we're concerned, that's something the property owner will have to work out with the utility.
Thank you, Director. Okay, thank you so much for the introduction and the staff presentation, sir.
Okay.
Please stay tuned to this station.
Yes, sir.
Applicant presentation. Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is David Theriak of the law firm Theriak in Spain. I have an office in Tallahassee, I also have an office in Orlando.
Will you restate your name?
David Theriak, T as in Tom,
Okay, I saw your name on the record.
H-E-R-I-A-Q-U-E. I have a copy, a 3-ring binder of our exhibits, if I may provide them to the Commissioners. Thank you.
How do you like Putnam County and not Tallahassee and Orlando?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'd like to start off by just briefly walking you through what's in the binder, and then I'm going to ask for our exhibits to be introduced into evidence. If you open up on the left-hand side is an opinion letter from our office just setting forth the standards for quasi-judicial hearings. And I know your county attorney has briefed you in the past. I'm not going to read my opinion letter, not going to spend a lot of time on it, just other than to remind the commission that unlike a legislative hearing, you're obligated when you're in a quasi-judicial hearing to sit as a judge. You're making a decision on whether competent substantial evidence has been introduced to establish that the applicant has met your adopted criteria for the rezoning. And that's your job. There's a lot of case law out there about applause meters, petitions, just non-expert opinion not rising to the level of competent substantial evidence. A petition for or a petition against is not evidence. An opinion that is not supported by expertise, such as somebody saying the road can't handle a certain amount of traffic and they're not a traffic engineer, or somebody saying that the property values are going to go down but they're not an appraiser. To provide opinion testimony, you have to have education and training. So that's in a nutshell what the memo just lays out. I've cited the cases throughout Florida. I know Mr. Castleberry is very familiar with them. Our first exhibit is a PowerPoint presentation that Laura Diedenbach, our planning expert, will be walking through. Our second exhibit, several of these are just excerpts from your regulations that we're going to be referring to, so we thought it'd be helpful for y'all to have them in case there's a question. The tab 2 is a copy of the county's future land use element. On tab 3, it's sections from your land development code that address the various commercial zoning districts that are allowed under your zoning code. Tab 4 is a table of dimensional requirements for your commercial zoning districts. Tab 5 is a floor area ratio and impervious surface coverage table, again out of your land development code. Tab 6 are your adopted regulations that an applicant must comply with in order to request a rezoning and to be successful in getting a rezoning. Tab 7 is in an abundance of caution, if there are questions dealing with traffic, we have a traffic impact statement. Our traffic engineer is here, and I'll comment upon that a little bit more once we're done with the exhibits. Tab 8 is the resume of Laura Diedenbach, and tab 9 is my resume. I know some of you have not met, so I want to stress that at the rezoning stage, I'm going to try to put it into non-planner-ese language and non-legalese language. We're dealing with the color on a map. I mean, at the end of the day, a color in the map does not add any trips to a road. And that's why you don't look at concurrency. The color on the map gives you a range of different uses that ultimately may or may not be on that piece of property. And until the decision is made for what use and the application is submitted after the rezoning occurs, that's when an applicant has to demonstrate that it can meet the county's concurrency requirements. And if the applicant cannot do so, the project's denied, and they simply can't proceed forward with that project. But that is not at the zoning stage, because you have kind of a buffet of uses. You had a chart up there that ranged from civic and recreation and commercial, and so that's not considered at the zoning stage. What's considered at the zoning stage are the criteria in your land development code and whether it meets your comprehensive plan. And I think it's important. This is a little bit different than what I've typically seen in a rezoning, where somebody has a use on their property and they want to change it to something else, and they have zoning that would allow them to do something, but they want to do something else. As you heard during staff's presentation, this has a residential zoning with a commercial future land use map designation. Under state law and under your comprehensive plan, this property cannot be utilized. It cannot be developed at all. It has not been able to have been since 1992, when the commercial future land use map designation was put on this property. Right now the zoning is R1, I believe it was, and under R1 it only allows residential. Your commercial doesn't allow residential, and the current zoning doesn't allow commercial. So the property owner has a legal right in Florida to have zoning that is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Because right now, because of that inconsistency with the current zoning to the current future land use map, all use is precluded on that property. It would be illegal for somebody to come in and try to build a single family home on that property, because it would violate the comprehensive plan. So what you're being asked to do today is to fix that inconsistency and to assign a commercial zoning district on the property. It corrects the conflict between the comprehensive plan and the zoning, and it corrects that split zoning that you heard about. And let me also be clear, everything I say is argument. Lawyers don't introduce evidence. So I'm trying to give you the framework for our testimony. I'm going to call Laura Diedenbach next. She does have a PowerPoint. I have some questions of her before she starts her presentation. And then we're going to rest. And if at the end of this proceeding, if you have some questions that you want to ask of our traffic expert, we have her available for rebuttal if that's something that you desire. We don't believe it's relevant, but we do have her here to address your concerns. So at this juncture, I'll call Laura Diedenbach.
Okay,
and
you, sir.
Are you going to swear in witnesses each? Son. And before Ms. Diedenbach starts, I'm not sure if I address the chair or Mr. Castleberry. I'd like to move into evidence our 3-ring binder so that it's part of the record. Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Diedenbach, will you please state your name for the record?
Laura Diedenbach.
And what is your address?
My address is 2820 Northwest 10th Place, Gainesville, Florida.
And what's your educational background?
I have a master's degree in urban and regional planning from the University of Florida, and am a doctoral candidate in my PhD program for urban and regional planning at the University of Florida as well.
And what's your professional background?
I've been a practicing land use planner in the state of Florida since 1997. I've worked in a variety of capacities at both the local government level and as a planning consultant since then. From 2006 to 2011, I was one of your planning consultants on the evaluation and appraisal report, the evaluation and appraisal report based amendments, a few capital improvement element amendments, did DRI review when Mariposa was being considered for development, and have twice served as an expert witness for you before the Department of Administrative Hearings.
And are you AICP?
Yes, I am.
What is AICP?
AICP is the American Institute of Certified Planners. I have been a member since 2001. It is the certification body for all planners in the United States.
And how do you obtain AICP status?
It's a combination of education and experience, and then there's also an exam.
Ms. Diedenbach, tab 8, is that a true and accurate copy of your resume?
Yes, it is.
All right. At this time, I'd like to tender Ms. Diedenbach as an expert witness in urban regional planning.
Thank you.
Accepted? Thank you. Ms. Diedenbach, have you been retained by the applicant to determine whether the proposed rezoning complies with the county's land use requirements?
Yes, I have.
Please describe the steps you undertook to make such a determination.
I reviewed the application that was submitted by the applicant, and then I reviewed the relevant portions of your land development code, your comprehensive plan, and your future land use maps and zoning maps related to this area. The majority of those documents are included in the notebook that is before you.
In your professional opinion, is the proposed rezoning consistent with the county's comprehensive plan?
Yes, it is.
In your professional opinion, does the proposed rezoning comply with all the requirements of the county's land development code?
Yes, it does.
Do you have a PowerPoint presentation that addresses the basis for your professional opinion?
I do.
All right, at this point, I'll turn the podium over to Ms. Diedenbach to walk through her PowerPoint presentation. Thank you.
Please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. Again, my name is Laura Diedenbach for the record. Much of what is in my presentation is reiterative of your staff's presentation, so I won't belabor things, but we'll walk through very quickly what our request is and what we're asking of you today. We are requesting a rezoning on this subject parcel, actually a portion of this subject parcel, for consistency with your comprehensive plan and future land use map. In yellow, you'll see highlighted the rezoning area. The parcel is 1.5 acres in size, and in blue, you'll see the overall property, which was the subject of the pre-application meeting. The aerial map here shows you the context of the surrounding commercial areas and the commercial nature of State Road 21 and State Road 26 in this area. Again, the future land use map for our subject property is commercial, as is the surrounding properties. All of these parcels that are highlighted in yellow before you are parcels that have the R1A zoning. You'll see the current zoning on the subject property. You'll have the split zoning on our subject property. And then you can see the surrounding R1A parcels. There's a cluster of them there. And those areas are inconsistent with your comprehensive plan's future land use map. In table 2.01A of your land development code, you'll see that you have a table that shows how the different categories in your future land use element are related to the zoning districts. And through this matrix, you're able to clearly tell what land or what zonings are allowed in the commercial future land use. You have two other zoning districts, the agriculture zoning districts, which are allowed to remain should they exist in commercial future land use, but no one can rezone to agriculture if they have commercial future land use. Your LDC section 2.03.05 outlines your residential 1 zoning categories, which include R1A. And you can see that they're primarily allowed in the rural residential, rural center, urban service, and urban reserve land use categories, and exclusively allow residential single-family uses. That R1A is clearly not a zoning category that is allowed within your commercial future land use. So our proposal that we're asking you to approve today is to remedy the split zoning on the property and rezone the entire parcel to C2. C2 is your commercial light zoning district according to your land development code, and it is appropriate for use in rural center, urban service, urban reserve, and commercial future land use categories. And as staff has presented to you, there are 8 different use categories there that are allowed in the C2 district. And your staff is correct that any of these uses, once it's rezoned, could come back before you, not just the use that has had a pre-application meeting. So that's that needs to be considered. What also should be considered is the context of your current zoning map and the context of the commercial zonings which are already in place. And you can see from this map that C2 is the predominant zoning category throughout the Melrose area. There are a few parcels that are C3. There's one C1 parcel that is within the historic district, but you can see even within the historic district, and I'll show you a map of that later. The predominant commercial zoning is C2, which is your commercial light district, and is a lower intensity than two other of your commercial zoning districts. And you can see the subject property is located there with the split zoning on State Road 21. Our justification for use of the C2 district is that the C2 is the predominant commercial zoning category in and around Melrose. A significant portion of the subject property is already zoned C2. The subject property has direct access to State Road 21, which in your comprehensive plan is indicated as a minor arterial. The rezoning is the remainder of the subject parcel. The rezoning of the remainder of the subject parcel to C2 is consistent with the land use and zoning pattern in Melrose. And the subject property is outside the Melrose Historic District and Buffer Area. And here's the map that shows the historic district, as your staff showed you, and then the historic buffer district. And you can see that the subject property is removed from the historic district and has access to State Road 21 directly rather than direct access back to either residential properties or the historic district itself. This slide on PM peak generation is reiterative of what was in your staff report, which shows that there is capacity available on State Road 21. And in conclusion, our request is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The rezoning to R2 complies with the requirements of your land development code. This fixes a conflict between the future land use map and the zoning map. And C2 is the proper zoning district because, again, it is the predominant commercial zoning category in the area. There is a significant portion of our property which is already C2. We have direct access onto State Road 21. It is consistent with the land use and zoning pattern in the area, and it is outside the Melrose Historic District and Buffer Area. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Diedenbach. Any questions?
Pretty straightforward. Thank you very much.
Chairman? Just for the record, a moment ago, Mr. Theriak asked you to admit this booklet into evidence, and my recommendation is for you to do so, but I think it's a decision that the chairman needs to make for the record.
Okay.
To admit them into evidence.
Most definitely, for the record, the applicant's exhibits for rezoning is admitted for the record.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
We have no other witnesses at this time. I would like an opportunity for rebuttal and a few closing remarks once we get to that point.
That certainly would be a part of the process. Thank you so much, sir. Interested party against?
Actually, four.
Are there any other interested parties that's for the proposal as presented? We will move forward to interested party against. And again, council, just reiterate, interested party is an individual that would come that would be subject to cross-examination.
Yes, it's an individual that is against this rezoning, that wants to offer evidence to the board as to counter the things that the applicant just made, as opposed to people that have generalized comments or objections to it that would be better suited for public input. We're really looking for either expert testimony or specific items to address why the applicant did not meet their burden of showing why they're entitled to the rezoning. If you will open yourself up to cross-examination, I don't think that's a huge issue, but we are looking for specific evidence as opposed to a more generalized statement that we would hear under public input.
Good morning.
My name is Deborah Massey, and I'm not sure if this is something, but I did want to let the commissioners know, I am currently vice president of the MBCA, the Melrose Business and Community Association, and we did have a Melrose Vision passed in 2012. And I know that I have given you this, but I just wanted to reiterate that we did vote on this, even though we haven't done all of our homework, as the zoning board has let us know how to create an overlay to help us save our beautiful little town. That's really the only thing that I believe I have a substantial rebuttal against what our Melrose Business and Community Association has passed.
Council, is it appropriate for us to introduce into the record the Melrose Vision?
Want to see it, Mr. Theriak?
Please, you have extra copy. Melrose Vision 2012 with 5 components with several subsections.
Mr. Chairman, I have no objection to this document coming in. We probably ought to number or give letters to them so that the court reporter and the record reflects what's coming in.
So let's call this interest party against 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Okay, in the record, interested party against Exhibit 1, Melrose Vision 2012 statement that, again, reiterates the Melrose Business and Community Association, also known as MBCA, as presented. I see a hand in the back of the room, I'm not sure. Okay. We will be having public input, so are you coming as an interested party, subject to cross-examination, ma'am? Yes. Okay. Your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Linda Kemp. I live at 25411 Northeast State Road 26. I was going to say these comments later during public comment, but I think they're relevant right now, so that's why I stepped forward. I'm here to object to the rezoning of the parcel R15002. I know that the Planning and Zoning Board voted in favor 5-3, but I want you to know some important information was left out of the staff report recommendations. The map of the historic district was not included, so they could not realize the proximity of only one residential lot between this one and the historic buffer zone. Number 2, they were not given a complete list of zoning options, and especially the CPO category, which stands for Commercial Professional Office Zoning, that would more appropriately fit into this commercial intersection. It would allow small offices and businesses under 5,000 square feet to operate at this site. Number 3, the CPO zoning category would remedy what they call an inconsistency on the future land use map by using this commercial designation. And I want you to know that Melrose citizens are already talking about an overlay map that we can work with your county planners on that would better define and protect the historic natural areas of our town. We have even discussed this with the Putnam County planners, who seem very positive about working with us on this project. And I just want to point out one thing about the map. This map, it shows the intersection of State Road 26 and 21. And unless you go to that one traffic light that we have and you look at Chiappini's store, which is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, you will not understand why the people of Melrose are upset about this garish Dollar General wanting to get rezoning so they can build on this property. This Chiappini store is like a store you would go into in a museum. It is captured 1935 to the T. You know, it should be a tourist destination, and you can't tell this by looking at this aerial map. You have to go there and look at it, and that's why the people of Melrose are upset about this location, and they don't want you to vote for it. And see my last few comments. So today, I'm asking you to vote no on the C2 zoning of this parcel, or delay the vote until your staff can study this more closely and work with the citizens of Melrose who are overwhelmingly against it. And I have some more rebuttal comments later that I'd like to bring in about all of the people who have responded to this issue. I set up a Facebook page. There have been over 5,386 hits on that site, and I have not heard but one person in favor of this. Any questions?
Ms. Kemp, the information that you read from, we do need you to submit that as an exhibit.
I will submit it
We
right
want,
now.
We will get copies of that, but we do need that so that, because again, it's subject to the cross-examination clause. And I do want to ask you a question. The store that you made reference to
Yes.
in the map,
It's called Chiappini Store. It's
Okay.
been in the Chiappini family since it was established in 1935. I understand that Christopher Robin Chiappini is the person who has brought this issue. Chiappini family is a big family. He is only one of the members of that family. And I don't believe that whole family is in favor of this happening. But Mr. Chiappini, you know, has a need to you know, acquire some funds for his private life, whatever, and he has a right to do that. So this is not against Robin Chiappini at all. I
well,
see him,
again,
I see him
certainly
every
the
day.
family should be able to speak for themselves, but I was just wanting
That's
to
true.
know whether or not there was any relativity in the store you mentioned and the property owner.
Oh, yes, it is. It's been in the Chiappini family since 1935,
Bless
and
you.
we just treasure that.
Okay, thank you very kindly. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I have no objection to this document being introduced into evidence.
Okay,
I do have one question for Ms. Kemp. If that's
okay, Ms. Kemp,
Sure, the mic, unless the other ones.
it's
There
coming.
it is. Here, I'll hold it. You can have this one here, ma'am. Do you have any training or expertise as an urban regional planner?
I do not.
Thank you.
I live in Melrose, and some of these, the CPO zoning that no one has mentioned, I had a consultation with a local attorney who has knowledge of Putnam County
Mr. Chairman,
codes and regulations. He's not here today.
I think we're
Okay.
going a little beyond the scope here.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you very kindly.
No other questions. Thank you,
Ms.
Mr.
Kemp.
Chairman.
No further questions.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one comment. It was mentioned about the Planning Commission not being advised or included anything about the CPO zoning district. This planning staff, the applicant makes an application for rezoning to a specific category. The staff analyzes that and makes a decision whether it's consistent with a comprehensive plan and meets our rules or not. It's not up to staff to suggest or identify other zoning categories that may be appropriate.
Thank you, counsel. I was going to make mention of that as well. Once an applicant makes application and they apply for a specific zoning, the options that are out there, we cannot make it a multiple choice kind of test.
I
So
don't-
that's just for the record. You don't have to respond.
Well, I just want to say the applicant, of course, would not want CPO because if CPO was on that site,
Okay.
a Dollar General store of
Okay.
9,100 feet
All
would
right,
not
Ms.
be allowed. It
Okay,
would have
Ms.
to be 5,000 or under, so.
But the applicant is entitled to apply for whatever
Oh,
zoning.
yes, I agree.
They
agree.
desire, and it's up to staff and the planning commission to decide whether that's appropriate or not.
Well, as a citizen of Melrose,
Thank you, Ms. Kemp.
Thank
you
you.
very kindly. Okay, at this time, are there any other interested parties against?
honorable members of the commission, chairman. My name is Patty Christensen, P.O. Box 306, Melrose, Florida. I am here today, I would like to emphasize, as a private citizen. Sometimes things in our own personal lives are so important, we feel like we need to speak up. And so I do want to emphasize that I'm here as a private citizen, and I also realize that you all have a job to do, and regardless of what the folks of Melrose think, you have to abide by the rules and regulations. I have prepared something I would like to show. Give counsel.
Thank you. This will be labeled as exhibit number 3.
Yeah, interested party against 3. Don't know if we
Interested.
ever got 2, did we?
Party against number 3.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
It appears that the majority of this document, it's actually a composite exhibit, pertains to the traffic issue. And we would object to this document because traffic concurrency is not relevant at the zoning stage.
If I may address that, I differ because traffic was part of the staff recommendation that was taken into consideration, particularly as to the predicted number of trips that cars may take at the location of this proposed rezoning. I'd like to make my argument. The commission can take into consideration, with the advice of counsel, whether they think it is relevant. What I have shown here
Excuse
on the
me,
map.
ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am. I'm not sure how you want to proceed, Mr. Chairman. If you want to.
I will overrule your objection, sir. If
Thank you.
that's what you was waiting for.
Yes, sir. That's
Thank
what I was
you.
looking for.
You got it.
What I've shown you here is the map of the roads in Putnam County. Over to the far left of the first page is where Melrose is. It's the intersection of Highway 21 and Highway 26. The second page gives you sort of a emphasized view of the road that was considered when they were talking about traffic. Let me just back up 1 minute, because in the comprehensive land plan, there are, well, you've got in the Land Development Code, Article 5 that deals with concurrency. You have a traffic circulation element in the local law that deals with the level of service. I believe that it should be considered. It's part of the comp plan, and whether it gets down to exactly what's going to be put on the property, yes, that needs to be looked at closer when that time comes, but the application itself says it's going to be a retail store with 9,100 square feet. So at any rate, the road that was considered for traffic is State Road 21. You go up about a half a mile from the intersection north, and that's the county line with Clay County. That little, not more than half-mile section carries a lot of traffic. But when this was considered and recommended, you go down south on Highway 21, south of Melrose, go past the cemetery, past Ocala School, and you get to Highway 20. And then there's a jog. It jogs over. I'm not sure what the mileage is, but they've gone down and they've taken part of the road that goes to Johnson's Crossroad, which has nothing to do with Melrose. The traffic in Melrose is so different. And if you're taking an average, you could say there's 99 cars on the road in Melrose at a given hour and 1 in Johnson Crossroads. And the average would be 50-50, which is not accurate on either count. The part of the recommendation on the third page is that County Road 21, State Road 21, this is the counts that come from peak times from the FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation. What they're saying is that the level of service is 740 cars at this peak hour in the evening, and that what you actually have is approximately 42 cars. But again, they have measured this from a place that has nothing to do with Melrose. The next sheets that I have, the next two, deal with State Road 26, which is really where all the traffic is, coming from Gainesville. There's no jobs out there on Highway 20, Ocala School maybe, but that's it. So the majority of traffic is on State Road 26. The level of service from State Road 301 to the Putnam County line is what they think the maximum volume should be is 790. And this says we are already at 836, which is beyond capacity. The next page over is State Road 26 from Alachua County line, which is basically the middle of Melrose, down to the intersection. And again, you have acceptable volume, 790. And what we have, and these are a couple of years old, the data, but 836, which is beyond your capacity. I took about 10 minutes and went to the intersection of Melrose. These are the next pictures. State Road 2021, what was measured and made part of the recommendation, is not very busy. This was about 5:30 in the afternoon. All the other pictures show 26. And really, in the course of about 10 minutes, there were about 70 cars there. So 21 is not a good measurement when you're dealing with traffic. This proposed rezoning is on State Road 21, but it's just 1 or 2 parcels from the intersection. And I'd like to just point out, and again, this is in your staff recommendation, that the county shall, this is policy B111, the county shall provide for a safe, convenient, and efficient motorized and non-motorized transportation system by correcting all existing roadway deficiencies identified in the plan. The intersection is a big part of Melrose. As someone said, it's our only traffic light. So you can't, in my opinion, look at this in a blind, because the comprehensive plan in the traffic section, the Land Development Code, Article 5, deals with concurrency, and I think the bottom line is that I don't think Melrose can afford to have this much more traffic on the roads. Your staff report says it could potentially generate another 51 trips per hour, and then this idealized evening hour, which is the potential maximum, says it would increase to 93 trips an hour. And they're saying that the capacity for the road is 740, but that's 21. And 26 is really where all of our traffic comes from. I would like to just make 2 other points, and then I'll sit down. But the vote that came out of the commission below, the planning board, was 5 in favor of the change and 3 against. If we in Melrose had gotten 1 more vote, it would have been a 4-4, and there would not be a recommendation for this rezoning. That should give you pause to think about this, because getting 3 votes on the first phase, I think, showed that the folks in Melrose made a good presentation and gave good reasons why this rezoning should not occur. The other thing I'd like to say is with, and this is the last picture in my little packet, is the historic district map. And while we did not put together a board, a governing board, a review board, Nonetheless, me, as well as a number of people in this room, worked very hard to get Melrose historic zoning. And that's in policy A151. And it says that it recognizes Melrose as a historic district. We mapped it out. Mr. Salmon's here, came out in 1998, I guess it was. And we zoned it, not zoned it, but we mapped it. We have not put together a committee, partially because we are in 4 counties, principally Putnam and Alachua. And to get a committee, there has to be a joinder of the efforts of the counties. But under the what is existing, just because we don't have a committee doesn't mean you can ignore what's here in the local law. The county shall attempt to preserve and enhance the character of Melrose Historic District, shall determine potential impacts on known historic sites. More specific, commercial uses in the historic district shall be of the type and variety that will not generate large amounts of traffic, have outside storage, or adversely impact the architectural character of any historic building in which such commercial use proposes to locate. This is not in the historic district. There is one parcel of land between this parcel and the buffer. And so I will close with that, but really what I want to say is Melrose is different, and I don't agree that it's a color to be marked in on a map. Melrose is different, and we have all these people here who are very concerned about our community. We love the Chapinis. We want them to be able to make money and use their property. And we were told not to talk about Dollar General store, but let's face it, I mean, that's what it is. And, it has billion-dollar revenues, and that is so incompatible with the Melrose historic area. Any questions?
Yes.
Thank you so very much. I'm sure that there's going to be rebuttal. Cross-examination, I'm sorry.
Okay.
This is Judge Christensen, Ms. Christensen.
As a private citizen.
Good morning, Your Honor. May it please the court. Do you have any planning expertise, ma'am?
I sat on the Planning and Zoning Board here for
Right.
2 years.
All right, do you have a degree in planning, urban regional planning?
No.
All right. And do you have any expertise in traffic engineering?
No. I have had several cases with the Florida Department of Transportation, but other than that,
You don't consider yourself to be a traffic engineer?
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything from the board?
Mr. Chair,
District 1?
I would like to know what document you read to us from. You didn't pass anything out, and I'd like to know where it came from
On
and
the
what it's
historic
part of.
district?
You said, the part I'm interested in, the impacts on known historic sites, that there should not be any. You can't hear me. I wanted to see the document that Ms. Christensen read from that talks about not impacting historic sites.
It's part of the Land Development Code. It's policy A151. And I just printed out a portion of it, but it is within the local law.
Can we look at what you've got?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, and this is regarding Melrose. You didn't have
Specific
all the
to
sheets
Melrose.
as you said, so
Yes, ma'am.
I guess I would like to know if this is something that we should be considering. It's part of the Land Development Code.
Counsel.
And
I think the applicant's expert is correct in that from the portions of the code that they reviewed, it's compatible, but I think they didn't go far enough, because we do have this concurrency issue that is in 2 different places. We also have a historic district, and no, this particular parcel that they're talking about is not in the historic district, but you know, I'm sure all of you have been to Melrose, and that is part of our identity. And so what happens at the corner has an effect. So I would just ask that you take that into consideration as well.
Thank you very kindly. Any other cross-examination? Please.
I don't know what document this is, I'm sorry. I think it's part of the development code, but I'm not sure.
Please come forward, sir.
Mike Brown, Putnam County Planning and Development Service. Just a point of clarification. That is from the your adopted comprehensive plan. That's the policies and objective for the Melrose Historic District that was adopted in the comp plan in the future land use element. And you know, just so you're asking where it came from, that's where it is. You know, it's a pretty straightforward answer. It's from the comp plan. And it does set policies, but again, this parcel does not infringe on the historic district as mapped and adopted in the comprehensive plan or on the buffer for that district.
I think what I was looking at is the wording of that says that, I don't have it in front of me now, but it says to avoid impacting known historic sites. So that, I was wondering if we shouldn't enter that into the record also. So if it's not to impact.
The wording from policy A155 that says the county shall attempt to preserve and enhance the character of the Melrose Historic District.
A151.
Yeah, A151.
51. This doesn't have an A151.
Go back to the front.
Oh, A151. So significant historic resources shall be protected through designation as historic sites. The highlighted part, okay. Adjacent to property shall review at the time. Proposed development on adjacent properties shall be reviewed at the time of the issuing of the building permit to determine its potential impacts on known historic sites. So that's at the time of the building permit. When such construction or other development activity may impact adversely on a historic/archaeological sites, the proposed development must provide sufficient buffering. So again, that would be something considered at the time of the building permit, which we haven't seen yet. This is just a rezoning.
I think that answers the question.
Question answered, sir. Thank you so much. Any additional testimony or presentation on interested party against? Okay, ma'am, we are going to have public input. Are you public input or are you? Okay, well, I'm not ready for you just yet. Yeah. Did you fill out a card? Okay, I'll be calling you. Okay, stand by. Okay. Any additional rebuttals?
Angela Garland, please. Need to swear the witness in.
Angela Garland, GTS Engineering.
What's your occupation?
I am a traffic engineer.
And could you briefly describe your educational background?
I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from the University of South Florida. I graduated in 1995.
And what about your professional background?
I have a professional engineering license in 1998, and I am also a certified professional traffic operations engineer.
And you are employed at MPH Transportation Planning?
No, I own my company, which is GTS Engineering.
Got it.
I work with MPH, who is the planner.
Right. And there's a traffic analysis that was submitted as tab 7. Do you have any familiarity with that?
Yes, I have signed and sealed that traffic impact statement.
Okay. And could you describe your findings for the County Commission, please?
Absolutely. As it is typical for a rezone, although concurrency is not part of a rezone, it is typical for an agency to request a traffic impact statement. It not only benefits the agency, but it also benefits the developer, because it gives you an idea of what is going to happen on, what will be the impact on the adjacent roads. Typically, you analyze only the adjacent, functionally classified roadway that you have direct access to. So that is exactly what we did. We utilized the ITE 9th edition trip generation using discount retail category to generate the daily, the AM, and the PM peak trips. And the PM peak trips you've been hearing are about 45 trips in the PM peak hour. Those were then distributed on the roadway based on the existing traffic counts. So 60% headed to the south and 40% headed to the north, as you can see on our graphic on figure.
And this is in tab 7?
This is in tab 7, sorry. I'm sorry, 60% to the north and 40% to the south of our site. And that is on figure 2. We then analyzed the roadway segment, which is the first directly accessed functionally classified roadway, which is State Road 21. Now, there's been some confusion on the service volumes, the maximum allowable service volumes. Your adopted level of service is D. So the adopted level of service for bidirectional traffic is 1,350 vehicles per hour. For a single direction is the 740 that the county staff were discussing. On Ms. Christensen's exhibit, if you wouldn't mind turning there, on the graphic that she showed that looks like this, I'm going to divert and talk about State Road 26 because she didn't put State Road 21 on here. State Road 26, if you look, she circled the maximum service volume of 790, but if that is a bidirectional. However, if you look right to the left of it, that is for a level of service C. Your adopted roadway is a level of service D, which is right below it, and the value for that is 1,350 vehicles per hour. So if you take the 836, 2013 all traffic bidirectional, compared to your level of service D, which is 1,350, it is still well below the maximum service volume allowable for the roadway. The same thing is applicable to our analysis of State Road 21. Excuse me. We utilize the Fdot traffic site, which is 0.1 miles north of the intersection of State Road 21 and State Road 26, which is approximately 528 feet, which is also about 250 feet north of the site in question. The traffic for that Fdot site bidirectional was 798 in the peak hour. The maximum service volume allowable under level of service D is 1,350 bidirectional. Therefore, it is still well under the capacity of the roadway allowable excuse me, by your level of service D standard.
Anything else that you want to share about your report?
No, I'll take any questions if there are any.
Okay. Any questions, Ms. Garland?
I do, Mr.
Harvey.
Mr. Chief Judge. Question for you. The level D service, that's something the county picks, right?
Correct.
So that hasn't probably been updated in a while, is that correct?
I would have to defer to your county staff on that.
Okay.
That's a question for them.
The other question I have is Pine Street, just north of the proposed site. It looks like you've got the intersection of 21 and 26. then you've got the proposed site coming out on 21, and then you have Pine Street coming out on 21. Does DOT or anybody have any concerns that intersections are just so close to each other?
That would be something that would not come out in a rezone. It would come out when they go to a site plan, a final site plan. And because there is access to a DOT roadway, DOT will most likely be looking at the final site plan. And at that time, the Access Management Department would look at that and determine if they had a concern.
In your professional opinion, is that a concern for you?
No, it's really, there are a lot of locations with adjacent street traffic and access, and this one is one that would be acceptable.
Thank you, sir.
Any further questions?
I would have to defer to the DOT access management standards for that.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Done. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I have 2 mics. At this time, we have no more witnesses, but when public comment is done, if we may have a couple minutes closing to be able to respond and summarize our evidence.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very kindly.
Could we have a break?
It has been requested that we have a break. We will reconvene at 12 o'clock. 6 minutes, sir.
Can I call you chief today?
Thanks.
I should have wore a black robe.
Come give me a buzz.
Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, I would like to call Laura Diedenbach for 2 minutes. We finally located the policy that Judge Christensen addressed, and we'd like to be able to share with you what it says.
Okay, where is?
No, I've got Laura
Christensen?
Diedenbach
No,
as
I
my
know Ms.
expert planning
Diedenbach is
witness.
here. Ms. Christensen, where is she?
She's in the back.
She's in the back.
Okay, can she hear?
Yes.
Yeah, I want her closer, though. That's fine, I just, I just want you to be in earshot of what's being said and presented right now, okay? You may continue.
Go ahead, Ms. Diedenbach.
Ms. Diedenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Laura Diedenbach. I pulled up your future land use element on off of your website, and I'd like to talk to you about the policy 8.1.5.1 that was referred to earlier. It's under an objective 8.1.5, which talks about you maintaining regulations in your land development code to implement the following policies, which provide incentives to maintain and restore historically significant areas and structures within Putnam County. Policy A.1.5.1 states in its entirety that significant historic resources shall be protected through designation as historic sites and through designation of historic districts by the county. The standards for protection, rehabilitation, and maintenance of historic resources shall govern the review of proposed alteration and remodeling of historic structures. So that policy is specifically related to the alteration of the historic resource or historic structure itself. And you have applicable policies in your land development code to protect those structures. So this policy would not apply to the property that is the subject property of this rezoning.
Yes, we recognize it's beyond the district as well as the buffer, so thank you so
Yes,
much
sir.
for that
Thank
insight.
you.
Just wanted you to hear that. Any comments?
I agree that the rezoning parcel is not within the historic district, but a lot of work was done to get that in the local law, and we just ran out of steam basically on getting a group together. But it's there, it's in your local law. We do have a historic district, and we've worked really hard to preserve it. This is not within it, but please don't have on blinders, because so many of the county commissions believe that Melrose ends at the county line, and it doesn't. Those of us who live there don't see the county line. Our neighbor lives across the street, happens to be in a different county. But anyway, just for perspective purposes, it is a historic district.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. Okay, as we continue to move forward, we're moving now to the close of the formal proceedings, which means we're going to public input. Going to ask all who have submitted cards that you are speaking, please address the commission. If there is a need for consultation or for someone to speak to to a specific question that may be presented, the chair will refer to that individual. There will be 3 minutes allocated per person, non-transferable. I do have the cards, and they're alphabetized, and somehow if someone's card come late, then of course that will break the order, which is not a problem. Mr. Eric Ehrenberg and Ms. Megan can accompany you and be second. You can come now. You don't have to share the 3 minutes. I just called her up.
No.
So I thought y'all might be kin.
Yeah, we definitely are.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for your time. My name's Eric Ehrenberg, 102 Lakeview Trail in Melrose, Florida. It's been an interesting day. Learned a lot. Appreciate everybody's time. I'm a little more confused about what might actually show up there than I was when I first walked in the door. That's a very huge concern because of the way the decisions are going to be made. Melrose, when I grew up in South Florida, unfortunately I'm aware of big cities, big box stores and all that sort of stuff. Moved to University of Gainesville to go to university, decided to raise my family in Melrose specifically because of the history and the nature and just the special place that it is. It's you know, you've got the, no, it hasn't been brought up except one time, but we're talking about all these traffic concerns. Catty corner to this whole thing, there's the Melrose Elementary School. You got, I understand the red blocks, I understand future planning, I understand design for commercial development, but also it's what type. Unfortunately, there's a broad spectrum of what those commercial developments are in our code, but I think we all have to try and make a decision on what's appropriate for the places that are there. And Melrose is definitely a special, special place. That's why I chose to raise my family there, and I definitely oppose the placement of a big box store. I don't want to turn our little red corridor into Orange Park. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Morning. Your name again for the record.
Megan Ehrenberg. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. I too am opposed. As my dad said, we live in Melrose for a certain reason. It has a special charm, a special beauty. I'll probably go ahead and say now that I'm going to agree with the majority of the comments that will be repeated throughout the day, so I'm not going to repeat comments that you'll probably hear, but I do just want to take a moment to tell a story. In 2008, I was a freshman at the University of Florida, and I brought my new college friends home for my first trip back to visit the family. These were all girls that were grown up their entire lives in big cities, South Florida, New York, different states. And I brought them to Melrose for their first time to visit Melrose, but I didn't realize this was also an opportunity to share with them their first time in a small town, their first time seeing a town that only has one stoplight, that only has one school, one grocery store, and their first time ever seeing a dirt road. So it was a neat opportunity for me to see and appreciate the area that I grew up in from a completely different mindset through brand new eyes of people that haven't ever experienced that before. And that's something that's really special to me, that's always been in Melrose and hopefully will forever stay in Melrose. And as my dad mentioned, I know there's all sorts of extra red blocks and tape and laws that you have to follow that are there for a good reason. So I just hope that you take into consideration the special charm and beauty that Melrose has, that the residents choose to live there. If we wanted to live in a big city that had a Walmart, dollar stores, Publix on every corner, we would move to Gainesville or to Palaca. We choose to stay in Melrose because of the special beauty and charm that it has, and that's why we choose to live there, and we're the proud Melrose residents that we are. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Elizabeth Bacon-Smith and Ms. Laura Berkelman will follow her.
Okay. Elizabeth Bacon Smith, 203 Morrison Road, Interlachen, Florida. I'm going to have to read my notes because I kept adding to them. Even though this seems a bit of a backwards process and it puts you in an awkward position regarding getting public input and being responsive to it, I want to speak because this is going to be my only opportunity to speak. So even though it may be moot and irrelevant, you might take it into consideration regardless. There's already a Dollar General that's located in Keystone. It has a huge parking lot. It's been renovated. It's not a very far distance for people to drive if they want to go to a Dollar General. So I'm here to express my objection with any changes that would allow a Dollar General, a food desert type store, which would increase dangerous traffic and gouge into the lovely, unique, artistic, historical community atmosphere of Melrose. So my concerns are twofold. With someone recently having been hit and killed by a car as he was walking on a Friday night art walk, I'm especially concerned about the increase of traffic dangers in an already congested area. Yet I am also concerned as well about preserving the visual, unique, historic atmosphere of Melrose. The legalistic approach of the applicant reminds me of the letter of the law versus the input of the community who's actually affected by this potential being the spirit of the law. So at the very least, I ask that you delay your vote because this will forever or would forever impact the Melrose Historic District and area. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm Laura Berkelman, 6402 Latch String Road, Melrose, Florida, and I'm going to bring a little map and show it to you, and I'll leave it with you.
Okay.
Here's the intersection. The traffic light.
You may have to use this microphone to talk because we have to get everything you say on the record.
Right here is the intersection, and then you'll see 21, 22, 20, 21, 22, and 23. 23 is Chepenny's store. And the subject property in 23 is Chepenny's store. It is adjacent, immediately adjacent to the subject property and the zoning. Those 4 properties are all historic sites found by the Historic Association back in 1988. They're 30 years older now. According to Chepenny's in the Lake Region Monitor, they're in the district. Apparently they don't know they're not in the district. So when you consider the district that's on the paper, there's more of the district that didn't make the official line. So please protect the whole thing. I volunteer with Historic Melrose. We've just gotten in touch with a tour bus driver the last couple of years. She's bringing tourists into Putnam County from Palm Coast, and she's bringing their money. And they're parking to see Historic Melrose, not a typical chain store. So please make anybody brand their building with Melrose, which is smaller, kind of cute. There are a lot of styles. It's a smaller scale. Thank you very much.
Just before you leave, your card indicated that you are suggesting that the Melrose Historic District and buffer zone be redrawn.
I am.
Okay.
And then protected with small scale and like style.
Okay. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Terry Brandt, and Rainey Burns will follow. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. My name is Terry Brandt, and I am a resident and property owner in Melrose. I and seven other residents, 6 of whom are also property owners, come before you today in objection to the proposed rezoning of the Chapini property, case number R15-002. We have submitted a 7-page objection and a follow-up 7-page addendum detailing new and heretofore unaddressed impacts, along with a supporting basis and several case decisions, also supporting our request for additional study. Since it's not possible to present and have fully considered our extensive pleadings in the time allotted, I am limiting my speaking time to less than 2 minutes and ask the Commission to hold any ruling on rezoning in abeyance until such time as the Commission has had the opportunity to fully study and consider our pleading, conduct any additional review, and if needed, to consult with the Commission attorney, Mr. Castleberry, on the points of law we have raised in objection. As to any questions you may have, we refer you to the pleadings for specific additional information and detail. I would like to raise one point, and that is, I think because the staff report undertook several different studies, including environmental study and the traffic study, they've opened the door to further consideration of what hasn't been said or studied. There's been no study or factual determination that would substantively demonstrate that any adequate consideration has been given to the preservation of Melrose's unique and evolving community, atmosphere, artistic base, historic value, natural surroundings, jobs, businesses, certainly not residents' wishes, physical environmental impacts, or impact of urban decay. And that's something that they opened the door with when they started talking about the fact that they have limited their report to conformity as being the only item studied. And there are all these other things that have not been studied and that should be studied in order to render a fair decision on this matter. And basically, if we listen to the attorney and we listen to the staff, there's no purpose to this meeting. You have nothing to consider. It's all been considered, and that's not true. It's just, I see I'm out of time, but anyway, what I'd like to close with then is to say that we refer you to the pleadings. Please look at them for additional detail. We thank you for your time. And we request that our pleading be admitted to the record and minutes of this meeting, and that the matters raised or any rezoning vote be considered as a subsequent time to be set by the commission. Thank you.
Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Brandt.
I'm not aware of any pleadings having been filed, and I remind the board that it has to make its decision today based on the evidence presented here before you and made a part of the record.
I'd like to respond to that.
Okay, just before you respond, counsel, in our packets, there was a handout with the header objection to proposed rezoning. And it consisted of several pages. Matter of fact, it's 7 pages with
That's what we're referring to as a pleading?
Yes, sir. That's
Yes.
what he wants to be a part of the official record, sir.
And it already is as
It
part
is,
of the package.
it's a part of the record already, sir.
May I ask if the commission has had an opportunity, each of you, to review those sufficiently to be able to make a determination as to the specific arguments? There are arguments that we have made that have been heretofore unstudied and are unaddressed that we believe the commission should consider before voting on whether or not to grant this rezoning. And we ask that you continue this until the next meeting or until such time as you can make that determination.
That is, I guess you really putting yourself back up into the interested party against, and obviously we've moved past that. I certainly have read the entire, all of the 7 pages and zoomed in even on all of those find signatures that authenticates the document. However, again, I don't know whether you all have a copy of that objection, and I'm sure that will be addressed again. They will maybe have some comments on that. But thank you so much.
Yes, sir. With all due respect, though, if these things can't be considered, it doesn't seem like that would be fair or just. I thought that the public comment period and the interested party period, I started to, suggest that I speak during the interested party part of it, but I'd like this entered in the record, and if you can't consider it because of some specific limitation, I certainly don't have the time given to the attorney and to the planning commission. They spent, an hour or two with
Mr.
all
Brandt.
this. I've got 3 minutes.
Two things. Number one, it is a part of the record.
Okay.
Number two, each of the commissioners individually had this information in time
Okay.
for it to be a part of the deliberations and the discussions when we get to that part. So be assured of that.
Thank you.
So the fact that you all were organized, pull it together, again, as objectors, as a group, it is on the radar.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
kindly, sir. Yes, ma'am. Please come forward. Ms. Burns?
Hi, I'm Rainey Burns. I live at 114 Myers Lane in Hawthorne. I've considered myself a Melroid for about 15 years, and I would like to beg this commission to consider the impact of the decision that you are considering today. I'm not a city planner, I'm not a traffic expert, but I don't think I have to be to understand that when big box stores move into small communities, your community becomes a battlefield for corporate competition with each other. It has nothing to do with the needs of our community. Nobody in Melrose wants that to happen. All of the local businesses will be put out of business just the way they have been in every other place where Walmart and Dollar General and Family Dollar have come in. The small town community life that we all cherish will slowly disappear. I, for myself, am in Melrose because of that small town atmosphere. I'm an artist. I've spent 15 years contributing to the art and culture community of Melrose. All of us have worked so hard to create in Melrose an atmosphere that brings tourists, that brings quality tourists to our town. People are looking for culture, for art, for music. We've all worked so hard. If these big box stores start coming into our community, that will be all gone. We will look like Orange Park. I, for one, don't want to live in a community like that. I know that all of these objections don't really have legal basis to stand on, but somehow along the line, people have to consider real people, the children who will be growing up in our community, and those who will be missing out on small town life. That's what I think this whole thing is about. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Ms. Madeleine Kajal. Cahal. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, lady. I've been in Melrose community over 35 years now, and for a lot of people that live out there, we like no change, even though I know that's hard to say that it won't happen, but we like our little town the way it is. I like to ride my bicycle, I like to walk my dog. I live about an hour and a half from the main, and a mile and a half away from the main area. But I like to ride my bicycle into Melrose, go park my car, take my dog for a walk within the town. I think about the school children that need to walk to the library, and that is through this pathway. I would hate to see them go through that with way too much traffic. And then just to ride your bicycle and walk with the traffic that goes in and out of these stores, which hopefully there will never be that much traffic going in and out, but I am concerned about that. Definitely love just our little historical area the way it is, And of course, the music that we can have at Chepenny's now and again is just wonderful for that little town. Thank you.
Thank you very kindly. Susie Collins, followed by Ms. Christine Earl. Good morning. Hello.
I'm glad you made this Civility Month. That's basically where I'm going. I've heard about the Putnam County Master Plan and the state mandate and the community issues, and I guess my concern is I've heard of all the legal issues covered by the corporate attorneys, but as a citizen of the United States of America, I have rights. And I think this is still a government for the people and by the people. I don't think that would incorporate corporate boxes, but I know that's on the books. And I guess I'm here to say, as a member of the Melrose community, as are 600 others, I have petitions I'm going to leave with you. We are concerned because small businesses are the lifeblood of any community. And when this corporate entity announces to their shareholders that there is now a blitz on to outcompete the competitors that would not be bought out, our little businesses are now just collateral damage to their big effort to wipe all other competition out. That's my concern, because you've heard, we all moved to Melrose because it is a rural American town. We like shopping local. We want our local people to thrive. We love the healthy atmosphere that is still there. So I think as a citizen, I do have a right and a legal right to speak today to maintain the health of my local community by excluding corporate ticks from attacking my healthy community. Thank you.
Thank you very kindly. Ms. Christine Earl. You say you pass? Okay. Jean Giselle. Giesel. Please don't hold that against me.
I have several concerns. I've been a bit on the board of the Melrose Library Association for many years. We have many school children who come to the library and they walk up 21 on the sidewalk, but with all the extra traffic, I'm wondering how easy that trip will be for them. Also, the traffic studies did not address anything about cut-through traffic through residential neighborhoods that are to the west of this proposed rezoning. I think it's a real consideration because there are no sidewalks on those streets. And it will increase traffic on side streets. I've also been on the Historic Melrose Board, and we have a consideration for the size and style of any proposed building on this site and would like to protect this historic area. I also might note that Melrose is largely a bedroom community, and there are at least 4 empty buildings right now. And I hate to see in the future more empty, abandoned buildings. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Joyce Grunbach, followed by Deborah Massey. Good afternoon.
I would like to address the board, the honorable board, and you, Chairman. I am not an expert by any means.
Pull the mic up closer. They're not hearing you.
My name is Kathy, or Joyce Gronbach. I live at 185 Ashley Lake Drive, Melrose, Florida. And I would like to share a letter that I had sent to each of the honorable board members yesterday to consider before you vote on this rezoning. As a registered and active voter and resident of Putnam County and Melrose since 1995, I would like to take this opportunity to implore the board of Commissioners to please vote no on the zoning that would allow the Dollar General Corporation to construct yet another commercial blight upon our haven of tranquility and sanity that we have thus far maintained in the wonderful community of Melrose. Although I realize the potential of increased tax revenues to fill the coffers of Putnam County in the form of additional sales taxes and property taxes, I have to question excuse me, I'm nervous, the validity of spoiling our peaceful community with the increase of both semi-tractor trailer traffic along with additional vehicular traffic to service and shop at the pending Dollar General store and their profit-oriented corporation. The traffic is already congested enough during peak traffic times within Melrose, and the proposed Dollar General would require a left and right-hand turn lane to mitigate the risk of increased traffic accidents, both for State Road 21 and State Road 26. Who will fund the additional expense? The taxpayers, of course. I have seen their stores popping up in otherwise idyllic rural locations throughout Florida and Georgia. They have been springing up like mushrooms in the pastures of the countryside all around us, to the tune of 11,500 locations that and they plan to add another 625 locations in the 35 states that they now are located, plus additional stores in Connecticut, New Hampshire, and Nevada. Sorry, I'm out of time.
Please
but I'm
summarize.
not quite done. Do we really need another Dollar General? There are already several within a 10 to 15 mile radius from Melrose, and I, for one, have abstained from all shopping at Dollar General stores in objection to their aggressive marketing and growth plan aimed at rural America. While I have not always been an activist, for most of my life as a voting citizen, I have now decided that if I don't speak up, shame on me, along with the rest of those who don't take a stand. My voice will be heard at the polls when it comes time to vote again, and I will gladly.
Please stay on subject. We're not up for re-election right
Okay,
now, and I want you.
I'm sorry, I'm just.
Well, I
I'm
want you to
sharing
keep
the
it,
content
and I
of
don't
my
mean any
letter.
harm by interrupting you, but I need you to understand that we're going to follow the law.
Yes,
and
I know, I
we don't
realize
need
that.
ultimatums about what you're
I'm
going to do.
not-
That's your personal privilege, ma'am. I
not
just
an
want to make sure we
ultimatum.
keep that on point. What I want you to do is to summarize
Okay.
what you're saying, because I also want you to know that none of us are soliciting any company to come into the community as far as a retail store.
I
We
did
want-
not mean
we want
to imply
jobs,
that.
but please, let's make sure that we keep it on point.
Yes, and I did not mean to imply that. I was just exercising my freedom of
And
speech.
continue to do that, but just keep it in perspective for me.
Yes.
Thanks.
Well, thank you for your valuable consideration in this important matter for our community of Melrose. It is a great place to live, and I trust that it will remain that way in your trustworthy hands.
Thank you very kindly, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again.
Good afternoon.
Deborah Massey from Melrose. I've lived there 14 years. It's the longest place I've ever lived in my whole life, and I tell you, it is a wonderful, beautiful, unique, cultural, artistic, what else can I say about our little town of Melrose? I come before you today because I feel like this is a wake-up call. We got word of this thing happening in our small town, and it got everybody's buzzing going on to try and figure out how we are going to save our small town. So I know that the people of, so many of us have signed a petition to make you all aware of how we love our town without bringing the corporate stores in our neighborhood. We understand you must resolve this parcel, but please consider another zoning category that could remedy the FLUM and save the site. It's called CPO, Commercial Professional Office Zoning for Business. It would allow a business like an office for a lawyer, doctor, realtor, or small business that is already there, and it would remedy the commercial zoning for that one block of FLUM. It looks like it would be the best decision right now, for the best option to save the small business, save the environment, save our historic trees, and save the citizens from having another unneeded, unwanted dollar store. We have been contacted by the University of Florida Law School students to help restructure our rural cluster. We have been instructed by your zoning board to understand how to present them with an overlay to protect our town that we will be working on and we will be presenting to you. We have dragged our feet and we are no longer going to do that. We want to save our town. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Massey. Next speaker is Carol Meyer, and then followed by Marie Morello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. I have a little story to tell, too. About 30 years ago, I was playing in a chamber group in the Republic of Panama, and I mentioned that I was going to go home on leave to Melrose, and one of our group, the violinist, says, "Oh, Melrose, the cultural heart of Florida." Wow. And she did go to the University of Florida, which I had forgotten. But I did want to reemphasize the fact that I'm a pediatrician, retired, and that there is an elementary school very near this site, and that the only sidewalk is on the south side of 21. So the children walking home have to go along that sidewalk, which would be where ingress and egress to the parking lot of any business would be. And the larger the business, the more traffic you would expect to have there, and I'm sure the businesses have studied this. So today, all you have to decide on is whether or not to have a zoning change that would allow a larger business when there perhaps would be a zoning change more in keeping with the small type businesses that we already have at Melrose. And to do that, the change will be irrevocable and always leave that possibility open. But now we have a slight chance to perhaps prevent that happening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. This is really daunting, my God. And I don't envy any of you. And I am a nervous wreck, so please bear with me.
Don't be a nervous wreck.
What's your name again?
Marie Morello.
Marie Morello. And I have P.O. Box 765 in Melrose, but my address is 21019 Northeast 35th Place in Hawthorne. And I'll read this and I'll try to be brief. Dear Commissioners, in regards to the flagged parcel in question on State Road 21 in Melrose, Florida, over 600 petitioners have made their desires, concerns, and needs cleared to the planners and the commissioners. We now know that there is another alternative that could rectify this ungodly situation that we are in. It is the CPO, Commercial Professional Office category, in addition to the other 4 categories that I'm aware of. The CPO ruling would allow us, in conjunction with the Putnam County Planning Department, to work on the overlay map that needs to be developed after this meeting in order to add the protection needed to safeguard our historic district. In addition, it would also save the small business owned by Lisa Logan that sits on the property now, save our historic trees that were planted over 100 years ago, protect our community from unnecessary pollution that will be caused by tampering with the property. And also, we spoke about the extra vehicles, which were cars and motorcycles, but nobody spoke about the semi-trucks that are going to be driving there every single day, dropping off beer, dropping off food, dropping off dry goods. So that is a huge issue. Can you just imagine semis turning the corner on 26 onto 21 right there at that intersection, and everybody trying to turn left there, and there's nowhere to go? It's just going to be such a bottleneck. There are Melrosians interested in purchasing this property. That would also give us a chance to go ahead and move forward with that. And I have to be honest, we don't want that store. It's unwanted, it's unneeded, it doesn't fit with our Melrose. We understand that you may have to pass this rezoning issue today. It's completely understood, but for us, morals and ethics have to come into the mix. Where do the needs of all come into play rather than the wants of so few? Do we allow these big box stores of any kind to infiltrate our area when clearly they are not wanted or needed? Do we crumble to the possible threats that they might propose? Do we fall by the wayside and just give over to it? I hope not, and I pray not. Do what each one of you would be most proud of when you look in the mirror each night and you go to bed and dream those sweet dreams. You are supposed to be representing a government by the people, for the people, and of the people, and corporations and big box stores are not people. We are people. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jill McGuire, followed by W. Page Osgood. Good afternoon.
How do I follow that?
Yeah.
I'm
Just
Jill.
say amen.
Hallelujah. I'm Jill McGuire from Melrose, P.O. Box 1206. I live on Lake Santa Fe. I've lived there for 35 years, and Melrose is my little town. My daughter went to elementary school there, and first of all, I'd like to thank you, commissioners, for having us here this morning. I know you've seen the many, many comments. There's a lot of people I know that could not be here today because they have to work, of course. I would like for you all to consider having, putting this decision in abeyance, if you don't deny it. But we would still love for you to come and have an evening meeting in Melrose where you can really see the community. So many of the people that are unable to be here could come and speak to you. And I'd like for you to come and look, you know, give us a chance to show you our little town and look at this corner and imagine what it would be like with a big box store there. So many people have said it so eloquently today about how Melrose is such a unique community, and a lot of us, and you all, not as many as old as I am, but remember what Florida was like and how many little communities there used to be that were similar to Melrose. There are very, very few anymore. We cherish what we have there, and we very much want to hold on to it. I'm also the president of the Santa Fe Lake Dwellers Association, and we've been around for about as long as I've lived on the lake, about 35 years. Our goal is to try to protect Lake Santa Fe. Melrose is the hub of Santa Fe, and really everything that happens in Melrose goes down to Lake Santa Fe. You know, whether it's superficial runoff or whether it goes down into the groundwater and goes towards Lake Santa Fe. The more big development we have, the more big impervious parking lots and stuff, the more our water quality is going to be impacted. And Lake Santa Fe is one of the few really big lakes left anymore with very good water quality. We're an outstanding Florida water. We have very good public access. There's lots of good lakes still, although over half of Florida's lakes are considered impaired now. And that's another part of Melrose that we very, very much cherish is our wonderful Lake Santa Fe. So we ask that you help us protect it by denying or considering the CPO designation, which would be much more appropriate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. McClellan.
Good afternoon. I think I bring a little different element. I am a second-generation Floridian. My husband and I chose Melrose 2 years ago to live in. We are currently selling our home in Jacksonville. We chose this town because of the historical feel, but also importantly, as she emphasized before me, the quality of the lake, the spring-fed lake, the historical feel, the area in which it is now. I understand today has been such a learning experience upon what you guys have to do today and what you vote on and what you don't put in as personal opinion when it comes to the law. But it seems very clear to me that the emphasis upon historic development and bringing of the historical element and getting it down from, 1992 is quite a ways away from where we are today in the development of that area. It is a reason why we chose to live there, to buy a home, to buy a good place forever. I plan on retiring here. So I just really want to put down that the Melrose vision is really something I think needs more opportunity to grow. And the idea of the CPO, being a resident of Riverside, I can tell you that keeping a historical value to an area will grow your inner community, your connection together, and your growth of stability. It's just huge. It's really huge versus letting other elements come in and decide for you what should be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's Gloria Schaefer, followed by Miss Gloria Sheffield. Gloria and Gloria. Okay. Schaefer and then Sheffield. Schaefer, okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
I am Gloria Schaefer, 718 Seminole Ridge Road, Melrose, Florida, for 37 years. I've loved everywhere I've lived, but Melrose is the best to me, and I want to keep it that way.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's why I'm here. I want to let you know that when I first heard about this, I was really concerned with this property and what was going to go on it, being so close to the light. You could walk in a half a minute from the property site to the light. And I was concerned about the children at going to school and coming home from school. And I heard about the library, and that's so true because I've seen them walking there. So this, to me, the traffic was, sorry about that, but the traffic is the first thing that hit my mind, because we know how long we have to wait, how long we used to have to wait, and the traffic is really, really, at times, really bad. So, with the school and the traffic and the proximity to the light, it's just not a place for the big box. Melrose, I want to say from my notes, which I sent to you, There's so many reasons we want to stop the commercialism in Melrose. We do not want, as they say, the big box stores. I emailed you when I tried to go from the Melrose post office and go to Williamson's grocery store. I had to wait for the traffic from the south, going south. I had to wait and wait and wait, and I finally got on. Now this is what, 200 feet? I don't know. And to turn into Williamson's, I had to wait for a whole lot of traffic. This was before lunchtime. So I did let you all know about that. Then I came home from Gainesville about 10 days ago, and all the traffic ahead of me coming home on 26. I couldn't count the cars because I was watching the traffic, but there must have been 20 cars ahead of me all coming into Melrose. So I'm just asking that, I did not know about the CPO, but that sounds a lot better, and I hope you consider it. I thank you for listening, and I thank you very much.
Thank you very kindly.
Hello, I'm Gloria Sheffield, and I reside at 749 North State Road 21, Melrose, Florida. I would like to ask you to postpone your decision. It sounds like we need to do some work, and that's on us, but we need to do some work on our historical district definition, and we need to do some work on how we can, when building happens, when development happens, we can ensure that it matches our town, that it fits in with the beautiful town that we have. So that's my request to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sue Sinclair is our next citizen. Good afternoon.
I'm Sue Sinclair. I live at 5712 Hampton Street, which is about 100 feet into Alachua County. But it's close enough to the middle of town that I walk to Chiappini's every morning at 7 o'clock for a cup of coffee and to pick up the paper. And we read the Gainesville paper and the Palatka paper. Several times every week, I go to Williamson's, maybe almost every day. So I'm buying local. I buy my gas at Chiappini's because the profit is local. It's not going to a corporation. I eat at Blue Water Bay. I go to Melrose Cafe. So it's buying local, which is important. Melrose is not a target of Dollar General. Family Dollar is. We don't want the same thing that happened in Satsuma to happen in Melrose, where the Family Dollar came in, the Dollar General came in, the Family Dollar went out of business, and you had another empty building. And we do not need another building. We welcome small businesses where the profits stay in the community. And I think the CPO zoning would be great. Thank you.
Thank you very kindly. Ms. Sarah Vines. Good afternoon. Welcome.
My name is Sarah Vines. I live at 8379 State Road 100 in Melrose, Florida. I'm asking you to vote no to the zoning variance to change the zoning from residential to C2. Instead, I ask that you vote to either hold off your vote on this or to consider the commercial professional office zoning. According to the Land Development Code, Section 103, The county is supposed to provide for orderly growth, which won't add to or create traffic congestion, and will promote civic amenities of historic, beauty, and visual interest. This is taken from your own website. Rezoning to CPO would be better than the zoning to C2 for several reasons. Currently, there is a business on this property. If it is rezoned to C2 and Dollar General is allowed to come in, the business owner will have to close her business and lose her income. So that would already put one person out of work. Should new construction ever be undertaken on the parcel, under CPO, the square footage of any future business would be smaller than C2, which is more in keeping with our community. There's already an elementary school, a convenience store, 2 gas stations at the intersections of State Road 21 and 26. The parcel in question is just one down from the intersection, and it will be right next door to a building that is already on the historic registry, even though it's not in our historic map. The size of a building allowed under C2 is vastly larger than CPO, and the concern is the traffic generated by that size of business. There are also several trees over 100 years old on the property that would have to be removed if a larger building were ever to be built at some point in the future. CPO most closely fits the businesses currently in operation in our community and is a perfect fit with the business currently on that site. A designation of CPO would be in keeping with the Land Development Code provision to promote Melrose's historic nature and the beauty of our old Florida small village feel. People relocate to, live in, and visit our community for our historic nature, our old Florida small business village feel, our arts, our music festivals, and we take pride in our locally owned small businesses. We want more of them. I ask you to assist us in keeping Melrose a community where business can thrive within a historic artistic community, and either deny the variance, postpone voting, or vote to zone the partial commercial professional office. Thank you.
That is the conclusion of the public cards that I have. Are there some others that were submitted that did not make it? Please come. Okay. Fill out a card, please, if you don't mind. If you do mind, then don't come on anyway. Yes, ma'am. Please come forward. You spoke earlier, but you can speak at this time. State your name again for the record. Ms. Kemp. Is Ms. Linda Kemp?
Yes.
Okay, I thought that's who that was.
That's the size from the center of the photograph.
Okay.
Sorry.
You're fine.
This time here.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Ms. Kemp, you submitted earlier what we considered exhibit number 2, and so you
Yes, I
have some
forgot.
additional.
I was so excited, I forgot to
Very
give you the
excited.
maps at that time.
Excited. Okay.
So anyway, I'd like to give you a little background about what's been going on in Melrose. My name is Linda Kemp, 25411 Northeast State Road 26 in the center of Melrose. So in the beginning, when I set up a Facebook page called No Dollar General in Melrose, I was amazed at the response. In the first 24 hours, it had 500 plus hits, and as of yesterday, 5,350 people, 56 people have been reached. Our volunteers have collected over 600 names and probably more on petitions opposed to Dollar General. Every Monday, we have held street corner demonstrations at our one traffic light. We have had TV 20 in Gainesville come out 3 times and do television news reports. We had a full front-page story last week in the Gainesville Sun newspaper and also in the Lake Region Monitor. And a letter called Big Business Bully was printed in the letters to the editor of the Gainesville Sun on Sunday. In between, I have made a public information request from Putnam County and found that over 50 Melrose residents have written letters and emails to all of you objecting to rezoning that would allow a Dollar General store. I did not see one that was in favor. If Dollar General can be believed when a spokesman says they want to be a, quote, good corporate community citizen, then they should go somewhere else and allow the small business that is already there to survive. Thousands of people are watching the outcome of this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jim Santangelo.
Sorry for being wrinkled up. They told me.
That's okay. Wrinkled up money spends also.
I'm sorry?
I say you can spend wrinkled up dollars, so this is fine.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, my name's Jim Santangelo, 120 Bellamy Woods Drive, Hawthorne. I'm a 33-year resident of Melrose. Despite the Hawthorne address, for some reason, I'm a mile and a half from downtown Melrose and 9 miles from Hawthorne. But I'm also retired 32 years from Alachua County government. I was a public servant, wound up being the department director for court services, spent hundreds of hours of my life at county commission meetings, and one of my retirement goals 2.5 years ago was to never attend a county commission meeting again in my life. I even had a shirt that said no meetings ever.
Well,
unless it
welcome
was
to the county
important.
commission meeting.
Unless it was important, and it is. That's why I'm here today, and I thank you for the time. I enjoy being 32 years in Melrose. It's the same reason everybody else is here. It's quiet, it's green, the water's there, we have the trees, there's an arts community. I enjoyed working in Gainesville every day. I like being equidistant between Gainesville and Palatka. We have two bigger towns if we want, and Gainesville, obviously, where I worked. The best part of every day, whether I was leaving work or meeting friends for dinner or a play or something, was to come home, hit that intersection of Melrose, and get back into the green space that my wife and I have lived on for over 30 years. And another draw are the businesses in the community. You've heard about Chiappini's. Our businesses have been there for at least a quarter of a century or more. There's Williamson's, there's Chiappini's, there's Melrose Cafe, Blue Water Bay, Dr. Marshall's optometry office. They're all local, small businesses run by people. And having spent 32 years in the criminal justice system, I'm not a big believer in coincidences. And a year ago, Family Dollar moves in down the block. I took my GPS yesterday that I bike with, and it's 1,115 feet from this property to Family Dollar. And now, lo and behold, the elephant in the room, we're not supposed to talk, because this could be anybody in that red spot coming in, not necessarily Dollar General. I wonder who hired HWC. I don't know who hired HCW. Coincidentally, they're going to come in, somebody maybe is going to come in 1,500 feet away from Family Dollar and give us another store we don't need or want. To talk about jobs coming into the community. We've got jobs in our community. Yes, you can always use more, but if a big store comes in like this, the small businesses are going to lose people. People at Williamson's, at Aces Hardware that's been there forever are going to be laid off. Probably everybody at Family Dollar is going to get laid off. Like people said, I know you have an agenda. Believe me, I know them. I've sat through so many of them, and you have to go to the point of order. I would ask if you could delay. I know you can't just change what the zoning's about because it wasn't applied for, but back up and punt and maybe come talk to us as people have suggested. I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Joe Harbin.
It's been a long day, so I'll be very, very brief. Joe Harbin, 4704 Northeast 255 Drive, Melrose. What has not been stated yet today is that we're unincorporated. So even though we have a vibrant community at the edge of this county, we have no governmental body to represent us other than yourselves. You're the only people between us and this development that sounds like is pretty serious with all of these big hitters here today. And so I just wanted to say, I'm a fourth generation Floridian. And it was very hard for me to find a town like Melrose where I could, you know, kind of remember the old days where there's still a lot of beauty. All of Putnam County is very beautiful. So I really am asking you to be preservationists today and to help us just maintain what we've got. Thank you very much.
Final call for any public input.
Just one quick comment for all of my public county commissioners. Just wanted to let you know that
State
you
your
are
name again for the record.
Deborah Massey. I am with Vice President of the Melrose Business and Community Association, and I would like to invite all of my commissioners, my Putnam County commissioners, to our evening meeting, June 9th, 5:30, good old town hall meeting. Come see our residents, see where we are, see where we live, and come let us thank you.
Thank you again for the announcement. This concludes the public input part of our meeting. Just before we move forward, I'd like for the Director of Planning and Development to come for just a brief moment. And I want you to help all of us to understand why we cannot meditate on or consider CPO, because that is certainly not the application, but I just want the record to reflect why we are considering only what is before us.
Well, I'm sure the applicant's attorney will expand on that issue, but it is not the request that they made. We're reviewing the request they made, and based on what's around it, the existing zonings around it, C2 fits in with the parcels that are adjacent to it, north and south. It does make sense from our standpoint. As far as speaking to what the applicant is willing to do, that is for the applicant's attorney to do.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Director. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, again, David Theriak on behalf of the applicant.
Excuse me one
Yes.
second.
Yes, sir.
We need to take a 3-minute break. For technical purposes, they're changing out some things.
Yes, sir. I like that.